The king who died at 3 a.m. and the nurse who woke him up. They said he was already dead. Machines breathing for him. Doctors signing papers. His own sister counting the hours until the empire became hers. But at 3:17 a.m., in a hospital room 42 floors above the city, a broke night shift nurse did something no one had ordered her to do. She held his hand and talked to him like he was still a man. By dawn, Adrian Voss opened his eyes, and every killer in the city learned her name before she learned his. If you make it to the end of this story, hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far this one travels. Now sit back. This is going to hurt in places you didn't expect. The rain started around 9 that night and never really committed to anything. It wasn't a storm, it wasn't a drizzle, it was the kind of weather that just sat on the city like a wet coat nobody wanted to take off, smearing the lights of the skyline into long yellow streaks across the glass of St. Jerome Medical Tower. Elena Cross stood at the bus stop on 43rd and Halston with her scrub top already damp at the collar, counting the minutes on a phone screen that was one cracked corner away from being useless. 10:41 p.m. She was late. She was always a little late, because the 38 bus was always a little late, and the MTA had stopped pretending to apologize about it somewhere around her second year of nursing school. "Come on," she muttered at the empty street. "Come on, come on, come on." A man 2 benches down was asleep sitting up, a paper bag between his knees. A woman in a hijab was typing fast on her phone, lips moving without sound. Somewhere down the block, a car alarm was going off in a rhythm that had started to feel less like an alarm and more like a heartbeat. Elena's own heart was doing its tired thing. 3 shifts in a row. Her feet in the cheap white Skeechers felt like they belonged to someone else, someone who deserved them less. The bus came. She swiped her pass. The driver didn't look up. She took a seat near the back because the front smelled like wet dog and somebody's uneaten carnitas, and she let her head tip against the window and closed her eyes for exactly 1 block. When she opened them again, her phone was buzzing. It was her mother. She let it ring twice and then picked up, because not picking up cost more in the long run than picking up did, and Elena Cross had gotten very good at math that other people didn't have to do. "Hi, Mom." "Elena." Her mother's voice had that tight politeness in it that meant something was already wrong and would be Elena's problem in about 30 seconds. "The hospital called again." "Which hospital?" "Dad's hospital, Elena. Which hospital do you think?" "I don't know, Mom. I work at a hospital. Sometimes people say hospital, and they mean my job." She pressed her forehead to the cold window. "What did they say?" "They said the new infusion isn't covered. They said if we want him to keep the Tuesday slot, we have to How much?" A pause. In that pause, Elena heard her mother do the thing she always did, which was try to say the number like it wasn't a number. 4,200. Elena laughed. It was a small, dry, unfunny laugh, and it fogged the bus window in a little circle by her mouth. "Okay?" "Elena," I said, "Okay, Mom. I'll figure it out. I always figure it out. I don't want you to... Mom, I'm on the bus. I'm going to work. I'll call you tomorrow." She hung up before her mother could say the sentence that always came next, which was, "I'm sorry." Because Elena had learned that if you let people finish that sentence too many times, you started to feel like you deserved it. She put the phone face down on her thigh and stared at her own dim reflection in the black window. 27 years old. Brown hair in a bun that had given up on itself 3 hours ago. Eyes that people at parties used to call pretty back when she still went to parties. Now they just looked like eyes that had been open too long. $4,200. She had 816 in checking. "Okay," she said again, quietly, to nobody. The bus sighed to a stop outside St. Jerome, and Elena got off and walked through the sliding doors into the wet, bright, antiseptic smell of her entire adult life. Well, St. Jerome was not a normal hospital. Technically, yes, it was a hospital. It had ERs and billing departments and a cafeteria that served sad chicken. But the top 6 floors of St. Jerome were something else. The top 6 floors were where the city's money went to be sick in private. Private suites, private elevators, private nurses, which was where Elena came in, because St. Jerome paid agency nurses almost double what the county hospital paid, and Elena had made peace with her soul about that a long time ago. She badged through the staff entrance, nodded at Marcus, the security guard. "Hey, baby girl." "Hey, Marcus." and took the freight elevator up to 42. The 42nd floor did not look like a hospital. The 42nd floor looked like a hotel designed by someone who was a little bit afraid of color. Charcoal carpet, soft recessed lights, glass walls that turned from clear to frosted when you pressed a button. The nurse's station up here was made of some kind of pale stone that Elena was pretty sure cost more than her mother's car. Behind the station, Denise was already pulling her coat on. "Oh, thank God," Denise said when she saw her. "I thought I was going to have to pull a double, and my back is currently held together by a leave and prayer. Sorry, bus." "Always the bus." Denise grabbed her bag. "You got 4207. Elena stopped mid-sign-in. 4207. 4207. Yep. By myself? Denise paused at the edge of the station and gave her a look that was somewhere between pity and amusement. "Honey, it's not really a nursing shift. He's not going anywhere. They just need a body in the room to check vitals every hour and not steal the art off the walls. Family's paying $180 an hour to have a licensed RN in there tonight. You got pulled in because the float pool's a disaster and somebody upstairs likes your paperwork." "Denise? I've never had a..." Elena lowered her voice. "I've never had a brain death patient before. Not solo." Denise softened. "Sweetie, there's nothing to do. That's the whole point. He's on a vent. His numbers are what they are. If anything changes, which it won't, you hit the call button and Dr. Patel comes running from the doctor's lounge, which is 40 feet away." She put a hand on Elena's shoulder and squeezed, brisk and tired. "Just listen. 2 things. Okay? 1. The sister is in there right now and she is a piece of work. Don't try to make friends. Don't offer her coffee. Just be professional and fade into the wallpaper. Got it? 2. Denise hesitated. "There's a guy in the hallway. Big guy. Suit. He doesn't talk. He's not a cop. Don't ask who he is. Don't look him in the eye for too long. Just nod, do your job, and leave him alone." "Denise, who is this patient?" Denise picked up her coat. "Room 4207, she said. That's all I know. That's all you need to know. Chart says Adrian Voss, 41 years old, subdural hematoma from a motor vehicle accident 6 days ago, declared brain dead at 4:12 this afternoon. Family is, quote-unquote, considering options. Which means they haven't pulled the plug yet. Which means you get paid to sit. Which means," Denise pointed at her own tired face, "I go home. Bye, baby. Be safe. Don't let the sister bully you." And then she was gone, and Elena Cross, $27,816 in checking, was walking down a silent, charcoal-carpeted hallway toward room 4207. The big guy in the suit was exactly where Denise said he would be. He was sitting in a chair that was too small for him, outside the door, reading nothing. No phone, no book. Just sitting, with his hands folded loose in his lap, watching the hallway the way a dog watches a door its owner has gone through. He had a shaved head, dark skin the color of strong coffee, and a neck that disappeared into his collar without a visible transition. His suit was black and beautifully cut, and the jacket did not hide the shape of the thing under his left arm. Elena had grown up in a neighborhood where you learned to recognize that shape by the time you were 9. He looked up when she approached. Elena's mouth went dry. "Hi," she said. Elena, I'm the overnight. I'm relieving Denise." The big man looked at her badge. He looked at her face. He looked back at her badge. He nodded once. Then he went back to watching the hallway. Elena stood there for a second, waiting to see if something else was going to happen. And when nothing else was going to happen, she pushed open the door of room 4207 and stepped inside. The first thing she noticed was the city. Room 4207 was a corner suite, and 2 of the 4 walls were glass, floor to ceiling, and outside the glass, the city was spread out like spilled jewelry. 32 million lights blurred soft by the rain on the windows. She could see the river. She could see the bridge. She could see her own entire life stretched out below her, 38 bus route and all, and she had never in her life been this high up at night. The second thing she noticed was the woman. The woman was standing at the foot of the bed with her back to the door. She was tall, thin, wrapped in a black wool coat that she had not bothered to take off. Her hair was the color of white gold and cut short and sharp at her jaw. She did not turn around when Elena came in. "You're the nurse," the woman said. Her voice was low and very dry, like old paper. Yes, ma'am, I'm Elena. I'll be with him tonight. Don't call me ma'am. Okay.
My name is Vera.
Okay. Vera. Vera turned around. She was older than Elena had expected, early 50s maybe. Her face was beautiful in a way that had been expensive to maintain. Sharp cheekbones, very pale skin, a small surgical scar at the corner of her upper lip that she had clearly decided not to fix because it was more interesting than what had been there before. Her eyes were gray. They did not blink very much. You have his chart, Vera said. It wasn't a question. I have his chart. Then you know what you're looking at. Elena made herself look at the bed. The man in the bed was tall. Even under the blankets, you could tell. His hair was dark, with the first threads of gray at the temples. His face was... Elena didn't have a polite word for it. His face was the kind of face you noticed on a sidewalk and then thought about 3 blocks later. Strong jaw, dark lashes, a small old scar running through his left eyebrow, splitting it clean in half. The ventilator was a thick-ribbed tube taped into his mouth. His chest rose and fell with the machine's rhythm, not his own. He was beautiful. He was also, clinically, gone. Mr. Voss, Elena said quietly, because you were supposed to, even when they couldn't hear you. He can't hear you, Vera said. I know, I was trained to say it anyway. Vera studied her for a long second. How old are you? 27? How long have you been a nurse? 3 years? Do you know who my brother is? Elena swallowed. I know his name is Adrian Voss. I know he was in a car accident. I know he was declared at 4:12 p.m. That's not what I asked. No, Elena said. It's what I answered. Something flickered across Vera Voss's face. Not quite a smile, more like the memory of one. Good, she said. Keep answering questions that way. She walked past Elena without touching her and stopped in the doorway. Nurse Cross? Yes? If anything changes tonight, you call me first. Before the doctor. Before anyone. My number is at the top of the chart. Do you understand? Elena hesitated. That was, strictly speaking, not how it worked. That was, strictly speaking, a violation of about 6 different protocols. Vera Voss was looking at her the way a cat looks at something small. I understand, Elena said. Good girl. And then she was gone. And the door sighed shut behind her, and Elena Cross was alone in a glass room 42 stories above the city with a dead man and the sound of his machine breathing for him. She did the work. That was the first hour. She did the work because doing the work was what she knew how to do when everything else was too much. She checked his lines. She checked his vent settings. She logged his vitals in the tablet. Blood pressure, 98/62. Heart rate, 54, which was the pacemaker doing its patient little job. Oxygen sat 99%. Temp 97.1. Pupils fixed and dilated. Because of course they were. Because Adrian Voss was not in there anymore. That was what brain dead meant. The body was a very expensive house with nobody home. She sat down in the chair by the window. She looked at him. She looked at the city. She looked at him again. She was not supposed to be looking at patients. She was supposed to be monitoring them. There was a difference. Elena had always been good at the difference, until tonight. Tonight, she kept looking at his face. He didn't look dead. That was the thing. Dead people, real dead people, the ones who had been gone for more than a few minutes, had a stillness that was deeper than sleep. You learned to spot it. The color under the skin went gray. The corners of the mouth went slack in a specific way, like a puppet with the strings cut. Adrian Voss did not look like that. Adrian Voss looked like he was listening. Stop it, Elena whispered to herself. Stop it, stop it, stop it. She pulled out her phone to distract herself. 2 texts. Her mother. Sorry, I love you. Her brother Danny. Yo, you up? She didn't answer either of them. She opened her banking app instead because she was a person who, when stressed, liked to look at the exact shape of what was breaking her. $816.44. Rent was due on the 1st. Rent was $1,475 because her roommate had moved out in September and Elena was still covering both halves while she looked for somebody who wasn't a fire hazard. $4,200 for the infusion. $1,475 for rent. $816 in the bank. She did the math 3 times, like maybe the third time it would be different. God, she said softly, and then stopped, because she hadn't talked to God in a long time, and it felt like cheating to start now, when she needed something. She put the phone down. She looked at Adrian Voss. Your room is nice, she said. Her own voice startled her. She laughed, a tiny, nervous laugh, and covered her mouth like a kid caught talking in class. Sorry, she said to him. Sorry, I know you can't. I know. It's a long night. The machine breathed for him. In, out, in, out. I'm Elena, she said. I'm your nurse. I guess you already know that part. I mean, you don't know anything technically, but she rubbed her eyes. I'm really tired. I'm sorry. I'm talking to a wall. I mean, I'm not saying you're a wall. I just mean... She stopped. She breathed. My dad is sick, she said after a while. He has this thing called IgA nephropathy. It's a kidney thing. It's not the worst kidney thing, but it's not the best either. And the infusion he needs, they just told my mom it's not covered anymore. It's $4,200 a month. I don't have $4,200 a month, Mr. Voss. I don't have $4,200 total, if you count what I owe other people. The city kept glittering through the glass. I took this shift tonight because it pays double. So, I guess, thank you for having rich people problems. She laughed, and it was a real laugh this time, and she hated herself a little for it. That came out terrible. I'm sorry. She looked down at his hand. His hand was on the blanket, palm up, the way they had positioned it after the last line change. His fingers were long. There was a wedding band tan line on his left ring finger, but no ring. There was a scar across the knuckles of his right hand, thin and old and straight, the kind of scar you got from a knife, not a kitchen accident. She didn't touch him. She just looked. I don't know who you are, she said quietly. Denise told me not to ask. The big guy outside is scary. Your sister is... I don't even know what your sister is, so I'm guessing you're not like a school teacher. The ventilator breathed in, out, out. But you don't look gone, she said. It slipped out of her before she could stop it. You don't, she said, a little louder, because now that she'd said it once, she couldn't put it back. I've seen it before. I've seen people who are gone, and you don't. You look like you're listening. I know that's stupid. I know the chart says, I know what the chart says, but I just wanted to tell you, in case. I just wanted to tell you somebody in this room thinks you're still in there. She stopped talking because her throat had gotten tight for no good reason. The machine breathed. The city glittered. Nothing happened. Of course nothing happened. Elena wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist, stood up, walked to the sink, and splashed cold water on her face. When she looked up into the small mirror above the sink, she saw a tired young woman with water on her cheeks and the skyline behind her head, and she said to that woman, out loud, "Get it together, Cross." The woman in the mirror did not look convinced. At 1 a.m., there was a soft knock at the door. Elena jumped. "Come in?" The door opened just far enough to admit a man in scrubs. Not a doctor she recognized. Older, gray at the temples. Glasses with thin steel frames. He was holding a tablet. "Evening," he said pleasantly. "You must be Elena. I'm Dr. Hale. I'm covering ICU overflow tonight, just doing my rounds." "Oh, hi. Yeah. He's stable. Vitals are where they've been. Mind if I just..." He gestured at the bed. "Please." Dr. Hale walked to the bed, bent over Adrian, checked the lines, checked the vent, typed something into his tablet. He took his time. Elena watched him, because watching doctors was what nurses did, and because something about the way he moved didn't quite sit right, and she couldn't have told you what. "Poor guy," Dr. Hale said softly. "How long's he been on the vent?" 6 days. Family decided anything?" "Not yet. I think they said they're considering options." He stood up, smiled at her, a warm, tired, professional smile. "Do me a favor, Elena. Step out for a second. I want to adjust his sedation drip, and I don't like an audience when I'm doing math." Elena didn't move. "His sedation drip." "He's not on a sedation drip." Dr. Hale's smile did not change, but something behind his eyes did. Just for a half second. Just long enough. I'm sorry? He's not on sedation, Elena said. Her voice had gone flat and careful, the way it did in the ER when a drunk boyfriend started to shift his weight. He's brain dead. He's not on sedation. He's on pressors, a vent, and a maintenance fluid. There's no drip to adjust. Dr. Hale looked at her. Elena's heart was pounding now, in a way she didn't fully understand yet. Can I see your badge? She said. Of course. He reached for it. It's right. He was fast. He was very fast for an older man in glasses. The tablet came up hard and sideways, aimed at her temple, and Elena's body, which was smarter than her brain, dropped. She went down onto one knee and the tablet cracked against the edge of the IV pole instead of her skull. And then Dr. Hale was on her, one gloved hand around her mouth, the other reaching inside his scrub top for something small and black. Elena bit him. She bit him as hard as she had ever bitten anything in her entire life, right through the nitrile glove, right into the web of his thumb, and he made a high strangled sound and jerked his hand away, and she screamed. The door burst open. The big man from the hallway came through it like weather. He did not say anything. He did not ask questions. He crossed the room in 2 long strides and he hit Dr. Hale once in the throat with a fist the size of a grapefruit, and Dr. Hale went down so hard his glasses came off and skidded under the bed. The big man stepped on the hand that was holding the small black thing. Something crunched. Said Dr. Hale. Quiet, said the big man. It was the first word Elena had heard him say. He looked at Elena. She was still on one knee by the IV pole, shaking. You okay? She nodded. She couldn't talk. He picked up the small black thing off the floor. It was a syringe, capped. He held it up to the light, turned it once, and his jaw went tight. Then, without moving his eyes off Dr. Hale, he pulled a phone out of his jacket pocket with his other hand, unlocked it with his thumb, and pressed a single contact. Miss Voss, he said into it. We have a problem. Vera Voss arrived in 17 minutes. Elena knew it was 17 minutes because she spent all 17 of them sitting on the floor in the corner of room 4207, hugging her own knees, staring at Adrian Voss's still, beautiful, ventilator-fed face, while the big man, whose name, it turned out, was Mikhail, sat on Dr. Hale's chest and went through his pockets one by one. The syringe, Mikhail told her without looking up, was full of potassium chloride, enough to stop an elephant's heart. It would have looked, on the monitors, like a perfectly normal crash. It would have looked, on the autopsy, like a heart that had simply gotten tired of waiting. Elena understood, sitting there, that she had almost watched a man be murdered tonight. Elena understood, sitting there, that she had almost been murdered tonight herself. Vera Voss walked into room 4207 at 1:17 a.m. in the same black wool coat she had left in, and she did not look surprised, and she did not look afraid, and she did not look at Elena. She looked at the man on the floor. Who sent you? She said. Dr. Hale, who it was by now abundantly clear was not Dr. Hale, said nothing. Vera crouched down. She was wearing heels. She crouched with a grace that was almost offensive at her age. Sweetheart, she said to him, very gently, I'm going to ask you one more time, and then Mikhail is going to take you out of this hospital, and you are going to answer in a basement instead of a glass room. Your choice. Who sent you? Dr. Hale started to cry. It was a small, quiet, ugly crying. A grown man in fake scrubs with a broken hand, lying on an Italian carpet, crying. The Morettis, he whispered. Vera closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, she stood up, smoothed her coat, and turned to Mikhail. Take him, she said. Not here. Be clean. Mikhail nodded. Vera turned to Elena. Elena, on the floor, made herself stand up. Her legs didn't entirely cooperate, but they got her vertical. She straightened her scrub top. She lifted her chin. She was 27 years old and $816 in checking, and she had just been attacked in her workplace, and she was going to stand on her own 2 feet while the woman in the black coat looked at her. Vera looked at her for a long time. What did you see? Vera said. I saw a man in scrubs try to inject my patient with potassium chloride. What did you hear? I heard him say the Morettis. And if the police ask you what happened tonight? Elena's mouth was dry. I'll tell them I was attacked by an intruder posing as a doctor, she said carefully. and that a member of the patient's family's security detail intervened. That's what I saw. That's what happened. Vera watched her. And the rest, Vera said. Elena met her eyes. What rest? She said. The corner of Vera Voss's mouth moved. It was not a smile. It was the ghost of a smile, the suggestion of one, the place where a smile might have been if this had been a different life. Good girl, she said, for the second time that night. She walked to the bed. She stood over her brother. She put one pale hand very briefly on his forehead, the first time Elena had seen her touch him, and then she took it away. I have to make some calls, she said, to nobody in particular. Nurse Cross, you will stay with him. You will not leave this room. Mikhail will be back within the hour. Until he returns, the door stays locked from the inside. If anyone knocks, including hospital staff, you do not open it. You call the number at the top of the chart. Is that clear? Yes. Good. She walked to the door. She paused. Nurse Cross. Yes. You bit a man tonight. Yes. That was well done. And then she was gone. And Mikhail was gone. And the thing that had been Dr. Hale was gone with them. And the door clicked shut. And Elena Cross locked it with shaking fingers and slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor again. And she put her face in her hands, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself cry. She cried for about 3 minutes. Then she got up, because she was a nurse, and her patient was not dead yet, and the protocol said vitals every hour, and if she couldn't do anything else in this life, she could at least do the protocol. BP 96/60, HR 54, SAT 99, temp 97.0, pupils fixed and dilated. She logged everything. She sat down in the chair by the window. She looked at Adrian Voss. She was shaking. She couldn't stop shaking. Her hands, her knees, the muscles in her jaw. Adrenaline had a long tail on it, she remembered from nursing school. It would take a while to leave her body. In the meantime, she just had to be here. She just had to sit. She looked at him, his face, his scar, his long hand open on the blanket. Somebody had just tried to kill him, she realized, in the dim, late way you realize things when your brain is finally catching up to your body. Somebody had sent a man with a fake badge and a loaded syringe up to the 42nd floor of a private hospital, and that man had gotten past the elevator and past the guard at the station and past Mikhail, because everyone had assumed Adrian Voss was already a body. He was not a patient. He was a job. The Morettis, whoever they were, had sent a cleaner because a declared brain death was a loose end. A declared brain death was a man who might, technically, come back. And Elena had just made that impossible to clean. She had just put herself, with her own 2 hands, in the middle of whatever this was. Oh, she whispered. She looked at Adrian Voss. He breathed through his machine, in, out, in, out. Oh, Mr. Voss, she said, what did I just do? He didn't answer, obviously. She reached out, slowly, because her hand was still shaking, and she put 2 fingers against the inside of his wrist. She didn't know why. She told herself it was to check his radial pulse, and she did, and it was there, steady and cool under her fingertips, but that was a lie. She had a monitor for that. She had 3 monitors for that. She put her fingers on his wrist because she needed, in that moment, to touch another living person, and he was the only one in the room. She closed her eyes. You don't know me, she said softly. You don't know me. You can't hear me, and if by some chance you did, I'm nobody you'd care about. I'm a nurse. I'm broke. I'm tired. My dad is sick, and my brother texts me at 2 a.m, and my mother cries into her sleeve when she thinks I can't see her. Her thumb, without her permission, moved a small stroke across the back of his hand. But somebody just tried to kill you, she said, and they didn't get to because I was here. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means anything, but I think if I were in your body, wherever you are, I'd want somebody to tell me. I'd want somebody to say, hey, I see you. You're not gone yet. The ventilator breathed. You're not gone yet, Adrian Voss, she whispered. Somebody's trying to make you be gone. And I don't know you. And I don't know if you deserve to come back or not. But I'm going to sit here with you tonight, and if they come again, they're going to have to come through me. She opened her eyes. The skyline had started very faintly to go from black to the first bruise of blue. Somewhere out there, it was almost morning. She didn't let go of his hand. She let herself, just for a second, let her forehead rest on the edge of the bed rail. Her eyes were so heavy. "Just a minute," she told herself. "Just a minute." She closed her eyes. 3 floors down, in a stairwell that smelled like bleach and old cigarettes, Mikhail was dragging a man in fake scrubs toward a service exit, and his phone was buzzing with a second call he was ignoring. 6 blocks away, in the back of a black SUV, Vera Voss was saying into a different phone, "I want every name that was in that hospital tonight. Janitors, kitchen, security. I want their addresses by 6 a.m. I want to know who opened the door for him." 11 miles across the city, in a restaurant that had closed for the night but whose lights were still on in the back, a thin old man with liver spots on his hands was being told, very quietly, that the cleaner had not called in. The thin old man set down his fork. "Send another one," he said. "Sir, not to the hospital." His eyes were flat and pale. "To the nurse." Back in room 4-2-07, Elena Cross slept with her hand in Adrian Voss's hand. She did not know that somebody, somewhere, had just said the words "to the nurse." She did not know that her name and her home address were, at that exact moment, being pulled off a hospital HR database by a man in a car outside. She did not know that the first pale smear of dawn was starting to come through the glass wall of room 4207, touching the side of Adrian Voss's face, warming the skin of his cheekbone. She did not know, because her eyes were closed, that at 5:46 a.m., beneath her sleeping fingers, the index finger of Adrian Voss's right hand twitched, once, very small, like a memory trying to remember itself. She just slept, and above her the ventilator breathed, in and out, in and out, in and out, and for the first time in 6 days, beneath it, almost hidden by it, almost a whisper, a second rhythm, faint and uneven and entirely his own, began to try. The second rhythm under the machine was so faint that at first it wasn't anything you could measure. It was a suggestion, a rumor inside a body. The ventilator kept doing what ventilators do, pushing air in and letting air fall out. And underneath its metronome, something in Adrian Voss's chest was trying to remember the shape of a breath that belonged to him. Elena did not hear it. Elena was asleep with her cheek on the cold metal rail of the bed, and her fingers still threaded through his, and in her dream she was on the 38 bus going somewhere she couldn't identify. And her mother was on the phone asking her a question she couldn't make out. And the bus kept going through red lights without stopping, and she couldn't find the cord to pull. At 5:52 a.m., the heart rate monitor went from 54 to 57. It was such a small change that the monitor didn't alarm. It was within the tolerance that the overnight settings allowed. 57 was still a bradycardic rhythm for a man with a pacemaker, still well within normal for someone who was, on paper, not present in his own body. The little green number just shifted, quietly, and nobody was awake to see it. At 5:54, it went to 61. At 5:57, it went to 66. And at 5:59, the monitor finally beeped, one soft electronic chirp, because the oxygen saturation had ticked down from 99 to 96, and the machine wanted somebody to at least glance at it. Elena woke the way she always woke at work, all at once, from nothing to everything, and for a second she didn't know where she was, and then she did, and she sat up too fast and the world tilted sideways and came back. "Oh," she said. "Oh no, oh no, no, no." She had fallen asleep, on shift, holding a patient's hand. She was going to be fired so fast her license would leave skid marks. She looked at the monitor. 66. She stared at it. 96 on the SAT. That wasn't right. Those weren't the numbers she had logged at 4. She pulled the tablet toward her with fingers that had gone numb from sleeping on his hand. 4 a.m. entry, HR 54, SPO 299, BP 98 over 62. That was the pattern. That had been the pattern for 6 days, according to the flow sheet, according to every nurse who had sat in this chair before her. The little green number on the monitor quietly moved to 68. Elena's brain did 2 things at the same time. The nursing part of her brain said, "Pacemaker malfunction? Check the leads? Get Dr. Patel. This man is going to code." The other part of her brain, the part that had been in this room for 7 hours and had been attacked and had watched somebody try to put potassium in her patient's IV line and had cried on the floor and had said, "You're not gone yet," out loud to a dead man. The other part of her brain said, "He's waking up." She looked at his face. His face looked the same. The vent tube was still taped in place. His eyes were closed. The small old scar through his left eyebrow was still the small old scar through his left eyebrow. But there was a crease between his brows now. A tiny one. A frown. The kind of frown a man makes in his sleep when something in the dream isn't quite right. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "Adrian," she whispered. "Adrian, can you hear me?" The crease between his brows deepened like he was annoyed by her saying his name. She almost laughed. It came out of her as a short, broken sound that was half a laugh and half a sob, and she clapped her hand over her mouth harder to stop it. She pressed the call button. She pressed it twice, 3 times, 4, and then she was already moving, checking his pupils, because that was the thing. That was the test. Fixed and dilated was what the chart said. Fixed and dilated was what brain dead meant. And she pulled his eyelid up with her thumb as gently as she could. His pupil moved. It constricted against the penlight. Small, sluggish, but it moved. "Oh my God," Elena said out loud. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And she hit the call button again. This time the full code button, the big red one, and somewhere down the hallway an alarm started up. She didn't take her hand off his. She was still holding it when Dr. Patel came running through the door in his white coat with his tie flapping, and she was still holding it when the 2 overnight residents came in behind him, and she was still holding it when Dr. Patel took one look at the monitor and then at the patient's face, and then said very quietly, "Oh, you have got to be kidding me." By 7 in the morning, room 4207 was no longer a quiet place. There were 6 people inside it, and at least 4 more in the hallway. There was a neurologist Elena had never seen before, a man with a shaved head and round glasses, and a ferocious concentration that seemed to push everyone else toward the walls. There were 2 more nurses she didn't know. There was Denise, back in her coat, who had been called in and who kept looking at Elena like Elena had personally set the hospital on fire. There was Dr. Patel, who had not smiled once in 90 minutes, which Elena hadn't even known he was capable of. And there was Vera Voss, who had come up from somewhere below, who had not gone home, who was standing in the corner with her arms folded and her face arranged into exactly nothing. Mikhail was back at the door. Mikhail had a small white bandage across the knuckles of his right hand that had not been there at midnight. Adrian Voss was still on the ventilator. That had not changed. What had changed was everything around it. His heart rate had climbed to 78 and stabilized. His oxygen, when they took him briefly off the machine to see, had held in the high 90s on his own for nearly a minute before they put him back. Not because he needed to be back, but because the neurologist with the round glasses had said very carefully, "Let's not be heroes yet." His pupils were sluggish but reactive, both sides. His corneal reflex had come back on the right side first, and then, an hour later, on the left. When the neurologist dragged a blunt pen up the sole of his foot, his big toe did what a living person's big toe was supposed to do. Adrian Voss was not dead. Adrian Voss had never been dead, actually, which was the quiet horror of what everyone in that room was slowly understanding. He had been in something the neurologist kept calling, with a thin and unhappy precision, a profound brainstem depression consistent with hypoxic injury and pharmacological potentiation. Elena had to look up 2 of those words later. What it meant, in plain English, was that for 6 days, Adrian Voss had been very far away inside his own head, and somebody had told the world he was gone, and the world had believed them. "Who declared him?" the neurologist asked, to nobody in particular, in the tone of a man who already knew he was about to make somebody's career end badly. Dr. Patel, who had not been the one who declared him, flipped through the chart. "Dr. Hale," Dr. Patel said, "at 16:12 yesterday." The room went very still. "Hale," Vera Voss said from the corner, in a voice like a closing door. "Dr. Stephen Hale," Dr. Patel said, reading. "Consulting neurologist. He's not on our staff. He was brought in by the family." Vera Voss's face did not move. But Elena, who had been in this room all night, saw something pass behind her eyes that she would think about later. Not surprise, not even anger, not yet. Something colder than either of those. The look of a woman doing math very quickly and getting an answer she did not like. "I see," Vera said. She turned to Mikhail at the door, and she said one word in a language Elena didn't speak, something that had a hard consonant in the middle of it, and Mikhail nodded once and took out his phone and walked out into the hallway. "Excuse me," Dr. Patel said carefully. "Ma'am, Ms. Voss, we're going to need to... There's going to be an investigation. There's going to be the police. Your brother was declared brain dead by a physician who, it appears, was not on our permitted consultant list, and whose credentials are... We're going to need to pull his file. Of course, Vera said, smooth as water. Of course you will. I'll cooperate fully. You have my number. Ma'am, I don't think you understand. This is going to be... Doctor! Vera smiled at him. It was a polite, dry, terrifying smile. I understand everything. Do what you need to do. Take care of my brother. That is your job. Everything else is mine. Dr. Patel opened his mouth, closed it, and went back to the chart. Elena, who had not been told to leave, who had not been told to stay, stood against the wall next to the hand sanitizer dispenser and felt herself disappear into the background the way Denise had told her to 12 hours ago, and she watched. She watched the neurologist lean over Adrian's bed and speak to him, calmly and clearly, the way you were supposed to with patients who were maybe in there. Mr. Voss, if you can hear me, I want you to try to squeeze my hand, just once, just a little squeeze. And the room held its breath, and Adrian's hand in the neurologist's did not move, did not twitch, did not anything. And the neurologist nodded to himself and made a note and said mildly, "We'll try again in an hour." She watched Dr. Patel go out into the hallway and make a phone call to somebody whose voice Elena could hear rising through the door, even though she couldn't make out the words. She watched Vera Voss stand in the corner without moving, like a statue of somebody who was not sorry. And she watched, at 7:34 a.m., when the second of the two new nurses was changing out his IV bag, and the neurologist was bent over the chart, Adrian Voss's closed eyes roll, very briefly, under his lids. Elena saw it. She was almost sure nobody else did. She looked at his face for a long moment, and then, without meaning to, her hand drifted back toward the bed rail, and she stopped it before it touched him, and she stepped away hard and pressed her back against the wall. She was not supposed to be touching him. She was not supposed to be here anymore, actually. Her shift had ended at 7. Denise had come in. There were 3 nurses on him now instead of 1. She was extra. She was technically off the clock, but nobody had told her to go, and she could not make her legs leave. At 8:04, Dr. Patel came back into the room with a man in a gray suit who was not a doctor, and the man in the gray suit walked straight up to Elena and said, "Miss Cross?" "Yes, I'm Detective Reyes, NYPD. Do you have a minute to talk to me in the hall?" Elena looked at Vera Voss. Vera Voss looked back at her. Her face said nothing. Her eyes said exactly one thing, very clearly. Elena turned back to the detective. "Of course," she said. Golten. Detective Reyes was maybe 40. He had a kind face, which was the first thing Elena noticed, because she had learned in 3 years of ER shifts that detectives with kind faces were often the most dangerous ones in any given room, because they were the ones you wanted to trust. He took her down the hall to a small family waiting room that nobody was in. He got her a paper cup of water from the cooler. He sat across from her with his forearms on his knees, and he said, "Walk me through your night." She did. She left out exactly 2 things. She did not tell him that she had fallen asleep holding her patient's hand. She told him she had been sitting beside the bed monitoring the patient. That was close enough to true that she could say it without her face changing. And she did not tell him that a woman in a black coat had told her, at midnight, to call a number at the top of the chart before she called anyone else. That, she had decided sometime around 6 a.m., was never leaving her mouth again as long as she lived. Everything else, she told him, the man in scrubs, the tablet, the bite on the web of her attacker's hand, Mikhail coming through the door, the syringe, the Morettis. Reyes wrote in a small notebook the whole time. He didn't interrupt her. When she finished, he nodded slowly and tapped his pen against his thumb. "Okay," he said. "Miss Cross, I have to be straight with you." "Okay. Do you know who your patient is?" "I know his name is Adrian Voss. That's the name he gives on his ID, yes." Reyes paused. He seemed to weigh something. "His birth name is Alexander Volkov. He's the head of an organization that, look, I'm not going to get into the alphabet soup side of it, but the federal government has a file on him that's about 6 inches thick. He is a person who a significant number of other people would like to be dead." Until about 15 hours ago, those other people thought they'd gotten their wish. Elena didn't say anything. Your testimony, Reyes said, watching her, is the only first-person account we have of an attempt on his life last night. Your testimony is also, forgive me, the only reason we know he was misdiagnosed in the first place. I have a neurologist upstairs telling me your patient was never brain dead at all. I have a medical examiner on standby who is expecting a body by the end of this week. I have a hospital administrator on the phone losing his mind. Elena nodded. Miss Cross, I need you to understand something. He leaned forward. You are not in trouble. You did not do anything wrong. You almost got killed last night doing your job. I'm going to get you home. I'm going to get a patrol car on your block for a couple of days while we figure out how exposed you are. I'm going to put your name under a witness designation on our paperwork so it doesn't get passed around. But I have to tell you, as a human being in a chair across from another human being, the people who tried to kill your patient last night know there was a nurse in the room. They know your badge number was on the schedule. Within 24 hours, they will know your name, probably less. Elena's hand went, without her permission, to her throat. Already? She said. Maybe already? Reyes's face was still kind. So, here's what I need from you. Do you live alone? I have a roommate. Used to. She moved out in September. Family in the city. My mom's in Queens. My dad's in a rehab facility in Jersey. My brother's at school in Boston. Can you stay somewhere for a few days that isn't your apartment? Elena thought about the $741 in her checking account after rent. I don't really have... The department can help with that. Short term. I'm going to set you up somewhere, okay? She nodded. She felt very small in the chair. One more thing. Okay, the family. Reyes's voice shifted carefully. The Voss family. The sister, in particular. If they approach you, if they try to offer you money or protection or a job or anything, I want you to say thank you very politely, and I want you to say no, and I want you to call me. Here's my card. Elena took it. Miss Cross, they are not your friends. They may save you tonight because you are useful to them tonight. They will not save you next month. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Yes? Good. He stood up. He walked her back toward the elevator. Somewhere in the distance, down the long charcoal hallway, Vera Voss was standing outside room 4207, speaking into her phone in a low voice. And as Elena and the detective passed, Vera Voss did not look at them, but Elena felt the exact moment she chose not to look. In the elevator going down, Reyes said casually, as if he were remarking on the weather, by the way, don't take the subway home. I've got a uniform waiting for you at the south entrance. He'll drive you. Okay? And Miss Cross? Yes. Nice work with the teeth. She almost laughed. It came out as a little hiccup of air. Thanks, she said. She did not go straight home. She did not go straight home because the officer Reyes had arranged, a young black woman named Officer Webb, who had exactly the kind of calm voice you wanted to hear on the worst day of your life, had instructions to take Elena to a hotel in Midtown that the department kept a working relationship with. Before that, Officer Webb said, apologetically, they needed to stop at Elena's apartment so Elena could grab a bag. Clothes, charger, toothbrush, medications if she had any, nothing else. 15 minutes tops. Webb would go up with her. Elena lived in a third-floor walk-up in Washington Heights. The stairs smelled like old fried onions and somebody's cat. Webb walked up behind her with one hand resting, Elena noticed, very lightly on the grip of her sidearm, and Elena noticed that and pretended not to. Her front door was locked. That was the first good thing. She turned the key, pushed the door open and stepped inside, and Webb came in behind her, and Elena stood very still in her own tiny foyer and looked at the living room. And the living room looked wrong. It was a feeling before it was a thought. The throw pillow on the couch was on the wrong end. She always put it on the left. It was on the right. Officer Webb, Elena said, very quietly. Webb was already moving. Webb had seen something too, or had felt it, the way cops feel things. And her sidearm was out of its holster and pointed at the floor in one motion, and she put her left hand on Elena's shoulder and moved Elena behind her and said calmly, "Ma'am, back out into the hall. Now, slowly." Elena backed out into the hall. Webb cleared the apartment in 90 seconds. Bedroom, bathroom, closet, kitchen, fire escape. When she came back, her face was tight.
Somebody was in here, Miss Cross.
How do you... Your bedroom drawer's open 3 inches, the one on the left of the dresser. The clothes inside are folded differently than the drawer above it. Somebody went through your stuff. I don't know what they took. I don't know what they left. You're not going in there. Elena's knees went. Webb caught her elbow, gently, firmly. Hey, breathe. I've got you. Let's get your bag. You tell me what to grab. We don't touch anything else, okay? Elena nodded. What she didn't tell Webb, because she couldn't quite believe it yet, was that she had seen something else from the doorway. On her kitchen counter, next to the coffee maker, lying across the small stack of unopened bills, the electric, the internet, the medical, all of them with final notice in red, someone had laid very neatly a single long-stemmed rose. The rose was black. The rose was dried, and it had been dead for a very, very long time. She did not go to the hotel. That was later. That was after she sat in Officer Webb's cruiser for 40 minutes, shaking, while Webb called it in and 2 more officers came and photographed her kitchen and bagged the rose. That was after Reyes's voice came on Webb's radio and said, quietly and without preamble, "Bring her back to the hospital." That was after Webb, without asking questions, turned the cruiser around and drove her right back into Midtown traffic, against the morning commute, and it was almost 10 by the time they pulled back up in front of St. Jerome. Reyes met them at the south entrance. He did not waste words. "Miss Cross, I need you to understand something. The rose means they were in your apartment before the attempt on your patient last night. That is a message. It means the order on you was placed before Adrian Voss opened his eyes, which means the people who want him dead also decided, before any of this, that you were a loose end the minute you sat down in that room. I'm pulling you out of the hotel plan. It's not secure enough on 12 hours' notice. I need to make some calls." "Okay. Sit in the family waiting room, not the public one. The private one on 42. Webb will walk you up. Drink something, eat something. I'll come get you in an hour." She sat in the family waiting room on 42. Webb stood outside the door. The family waiting room on 42 was not like other hospital waiting rooms. It had leather chairs. It had a coffee machine that used real espresso pods. It had a view of the bridge. Elena sat in one of the leather chairs with her hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee she did not remember pouring, and she did not drink it. And she watched the light move across the river, and she thought about the black rose on her counter, and she thought about her mother alone in Queens, and she thought, what if they go to my mother? And her whole body went cold. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers were shaking so badly, it took her 3 tries to unlock it. She called her mother. "Hi, honey." "Mom." "What's wrong?" "Mom, I need you to listen to me, and I need you to not ask questions yet, okay?" "Elena, what's going on?" "Mom, listen. I need you to go to Aunt Rosa's today, this morning. I need you to pack a bag and go to Aunt Rosa's, and I need you to stay there for a few days. Can you do that for me? Honey? Please." There was a very long pause. "Is this about work?" Elena closed her eyes. "Yes," she said, and she hated how small her voice sounded. "It's about work. I can't say more, please, just go." Okay, honey, okay. And Mom, yes, I love you. I love you too, baby." She hung up and she put her face in her hands, and she sat like that for a long time. When she looked up, Vera Voss was standing in the doorway. Vera Voss had taken off the black wool coat. Underneath it, she was wearing a cream silk blouse and dark trousers and a single long gold chain that fell almost to her waist, and she looked like she had slept for 9 hours in a cashmere bed, which was impossible because Elena had just seen her in room 4207 an hour ago. "Nurse Cross," Vera said. Elena stood up. She didn't know why. She just did. "May I sit?" "Of course." Vera sat in the leather chair across from her and crossed her legs at the ankle. "Your apartment," she said. Elena's eyes snapped up. "How did you—" "I have friends on the police radio." Vera's voice was mild. "I hope that doesn't shock you." "It doesn't shock me." "Good. Honesty first. Always. Between women in a room like this." Vera set her hands in her lap. Her fingernails were a short, clean, oxblood red. A flower was left for you. Is that correct? Yes. A black rose. Yes. Dried. Yes. Vera sighed almost imperceptibly and looked out at the river. There is a man, she said conversationally. An old man. He lives in a house in a neighborhood I won't name to you, because if I name it, you will know too much, and I don't want to burden you with knowing too much. This old man grew up at the same time as my father. He has a fondness for the old ways. One of the old ways, when he is telling somebody that their end has been decided, is to send a black rose. It's theatrical. I've always thought it was in poor taste. But he is a man who likes to be sure his meaning is understood. The Morettis, Elena said. Vera looked at her. You paid attention last night, Miss Cross. I paid attention. Then I'll save us both the trouble of pretending. Yes, the Morettis. The old man's name is Salvatore. He believes my brother is dead. He has spent the last 6 days dividing my brother's business among his sons. He sent a man last night to finish the job because my brother, in his condition, was a loose end. He also sent a man to your apartment because you, Miss Cross, are another loose end. These things were decided at the same meeting. Do you understand? Elena nodded. Her throat was too tight to speak. Good. Now, here's what you need to decide in the next 20 minutes. You have 3 options. Vera held up one finger. Option 1. You go with the detective. You let the police put you in a hotel. You testify when they ask you to testify. You go home eventually. The department will protect you for roughly 6 weeks, after which their budget runs out and their interest moves on to the next case. At that point, you will be a woman living alone in a walk-up who knows too much. I give you 2 months before something happens to you that is made to look like an accident. Elena's stomach turned. Vera held up a second finger. Option 2. You disappear. I will arrange it. New name, new city, a job at a hospital in a state I'll choose, a sum of money and an account under the new name, enough to pay the debts I know you have, and your father's treatment and your mother's mortgage, which I know is 2 months behind. You will never see any of us again. You will never see anyone you currently know again. Your mother, your father, your brother. You will mourn them from a distance. You will be safe. You will be alone. Elena's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Vera held up a third finger. Option 3. You come with me. You stay inside a building my brother owns. It has a door no one comes through without my permission. You will be inside that door until the old man and his sons are no longer a problem. In exchange, you continue, quietly, to assist in my brother's recovery. Because the neurologist upstairs has already told me that whatever stimulus was in that room last night should be preserved, and you are what was in that room last night. No one will ask you to do anything illegal. No one will ask you to lie to the police beyond what you have already, wisely, chosen not to tell them. When it is safe, you may leave. If you leave with the money from option 2, and my blessing, and nothing held against you. If you stay longer, that is a separate conversation. Elena stared at her. Why? She said. Why are you offering me this? Vera tilted her head. Because my brother came back when you were in the room, she said simply. And I am, Miss Cross, a woman who believes in repaying debts. My brother is everything I have in the world. You gave him back to me. I am not going to let Salvatore Moretti send a man to a walk-up in Washington Heights to thank you for it. Elena looked down at her hands. Her hands were shaking again. Her hands had been shaking in one way or another for hours. She thought about the black rose. She thought about her mother packing a bag in Queens. She thought about Reyes's kind face and his card in her pocket and the way he had said they are not your friends. She thought about the long hand open on the blanket at 5:52 a.m. and about what it had felt like to say, "You're not gone yet," to a man she didn't know, and about what it had felt like to have him come back under her fingers. I need to think, Elena said. You have 20 minutes. I need to call my mother again. Call her. Tell her nothing of what we've discussed. Tell her you'll see her soon. Is that true? Vera's face did not soften, but it did, for half a second, become something other than what it was. I hope so, she said. She stood up. 20 minutes, Miss Cross. And she was gone. Elena did not call her mother. She sat in the leather chair, and she looked at the river, and she did not call her mother, because the conversation she would have with her mother would not be the real conversation, and the real conversation was the one she was about to have with herself. She was not a brave person. She had never been a brave person. She had been a scared person who had gotten very good at performing calm because calm was what the job required, and because exhaustion made everything look like calm eventually. She was also, she realized with a sudden flat clarity, someone who had already made this decision. She had made it at 5:52 a.m., with her hand in his hand, when his heart rate had come up under her fingers and she had not let go. She had made it when she had looked Detective Reyes in the eye and left out the part about Vera's number at the top of the chart. She had made it when she had chosen, instead of doing her job, to talk to a dead man about her dying father at 2 a.m, because something in the silence had felt unfinished. She had not been brave yet, but she had been, for about 9 hours now, somebody who kept walking toward a door instead of away from it. She got up. She walked out of the family waiting room. Officer Webb was outside. "Ma'am, I need to see the detective, and then I need to see Ms. Voss." "In that order?" "In that order." Reyes was in the small conference room 2 doors down. He looked up when she came in. His kind face did not change, but his eyes, she thought, went a little tired. "You've been talking to her," he said. "Yes." "And?" Elena took a breath. "I'm going to stay in the city," she said. "I'm going to cooperate fully with your investigation. I will testify to everything I saw in that room last night. I will sign whatever you need me to sign." "Good. Okay, that's good. We'll get you into—" "I'm not going to the hotel." He stopped. "Miss Cross, detective, you told me yourself. 6 weeks. And after that, I'm a woman in a walk-up who knows too much. I watched somebody put a dead rose on my kitchen counter to tell me I was going to die. I don't think I get to go back to pretending my life is a normal life. Miss Cross, if you're telling me that you're accepting protection from the Voss family, I'm telling you," Elena said carefully, "that I am going to stay somewhere safer than a hotel for a little while. I am going to call you every 48 hours. I'm going to answer every question you have. I am not going to disappear. I'm not going to lie for anyone. I'm not going to go home." Reyes looked at her for a long moment. He was not stupid. He knew exactly what she was saying. He also knew, she could see in the slight movement at the corner of his jaw, that he did not have any better option to offer her that would actually keep her alive past Christmas. "Miss Cross." "Yes. I cannot protect you from people whose house you choose to sleep in." "I know. I am begging you, professionally and personally, to reconsider." "I know." He looked down at his hands, then back up at her. "Call me every 48 hours. If you go longer than 72 without calling, I will come looking for you, and I will come hard. Do you understand?" "I understand. Keep the card." "I have it." "Miss Cross?" "Yes." "This is how people like you end up dead, and I'm not talking about the Morettis." Elena nodded. She did not answer. She walked back down the charcoal hallway. Vera Voss was at the nurse's station, her back to Elena, making a phone call in that same foreign language Elena didn't speak. She turned, felt Elena behind her, and ended the call in one crisp syllable. "Well?" Elena took a breath. "Option 3, she said. Vera did not smile. Vera was not, Elena was starting to understand, a woman who smiled for things that mattered. But something in Vera's shoulders let go, very slightly, as if an argument she had been prepared to have was not going to be necessary after all. "Good. On 2 conditions." Vera raised one eyebrow. "Say them." "I don't lie to the police. You already said that. I want to hear you say it again. You don't lie to the police, within the boundary of what you already know, which is, I remind you, considerably less than you think it is. 2. My mother. You leave her alone. You don't offer her anything. You don't send anyone to check on her. You don't send anyone to protect her. If you think she is in danger because of me, you tell me, and I will decide what to do. Not you, me." Vera studied her. "Agreed. I want that in, I don't know how to. My word is the best document you will ever get from me, Miss Cross. It's also, for what it's worth, the only one that has ever been binding in my family. Your mother is not my business. You have my word." Elena nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Okay. Vera turned back to the station and picked up a folder she had left there. Mikhail will meet you at the south entrance in 10 minutes with a car. You will not go back to your apartment. We'll bring anything you need. Your phone, you keep. Your number, we change this week. The building we are taking you to has an entire floor that is not on any directory. You will have your own rooms. There is no key to those rooms that is not yours, except for a master held by me, which I will not use without your knowledge. Do you have any allergies? To what? Foods, medications, animals, anything. Shellfish. Noted. Vera handed her the folder. What's this? The paperwork we discussed. Medical power of attorney for my brother, in the event of another episode. Non-disclosure covering what you saw last night. A number to a private account in your name with the sum we discussed, pre-deposited, in case our arrangement ends abruptly. Read it at your leisure. Sign nothing today. I want you to be clear-eyed when you sign. Elena took the folder. It was heavy. Nurse Cross. Yes. One more thing. Okay. My brother, Vera said, and for the first time her voice was not dry. It was something else, something small and tightly held, the way a person holds a hot pan with a towel that isn't quite thick enough. He will wake up, probably within days, possibly within hours. When he does, he will be confused. He will be in pain. He will also be, briefly, very frightened, which is a thing he has not been in front of anyone since he was 12 years old. The neurologist has asked for you specifically to be in the room when he opens his eyes, because whatever it was you did last night, he wants to replicate the conditions. Okay? I am asking you, not ordering you, asking you, to be gentle with him in that moment. Do you understand what I'm asking? Yes. Good. Vera did not reach for her. Vera did not hug her, or squeeze her arm, or do any of the things that women in movies did to other women in moments like this. Vera just looked at her, with those pale gray eyes, and nodded once. Welcome to the family, Miss Cross. I'm not... I know, Vera said. I know you're not. I said it anyway. And then Vera walked away down the charcoal hallway, heels clicking on the marble at the end of it. And Elena Cross, 27 years old, $816 in checking, holding a folder that she was almost certainly not supposed to be holding, stood under the soft, recessed lights of the 42nd floor of St. Jerome Medical Tower, and understood, the way you understand a fall has started, that her old life was now behind her, and that she was not going to be able to walk back to it. The elevator going down to the south entrance was very quiet. Officer Webb was not in it with her. Officer Webb had been, politely, left upstairs. Mikhail was in it with her. Mikhail, with his bandaged knuckles and his small, sad silence, had appeared at Elena's elbow when Vera walked away, and had said only, Miss Cross, with me, please, and Elena had said, okay, and they had walked together to the elevator. The elevator had mirrors. Elena looked at herself in the mirrors. She had not slept. She had circles under her eyes the color of storm clouds. Her bun had mostly collapsed. Her scrubs were wrinkled. She did not look like a woman who had just made an enormous decision. She looked like a woman who had worked a terrible overnight shift and was on her way home to sleep. Mikhail, next to her, did not look at her. He was watching the numbers go down. Can I ask you something? Elena said. Yes. Last night. Yes. Was that the first time? Mikhail was quiet for a long moment. What do you mean? Somebody coming for him. In a hospital. Was that the first time? Mikhail thought about his answer. No, he said. Elena nodded. She had known, somehow. She had known in the way she had known the throw pillow on her couch was on the wrong end. Mikhail. Yes. Thank you. For coming in when I screamed. Mikhail's eyes did for the first time shift sideways to look at her in the mirror. You screamed very loud, he said. Yes. That is good. You should always scream that loud. Okay. He looked back at the numbers. Also, he said after a while, you bit him. I did. Ms. Voss told me. She is still pleased about it. Elena laughed. It surprised her. It came out of her with all the air she had been holding for 14 hours, and it was a real laugh, small and shaking, and Mikhail's mouth moved at the corner. Not a smile. Mikhail did not appear to do smiles, but something adjacent to one. The elevator opened. The south entrance was a private bay, an unmarked door that opened onto a loading dock that led onto a service street. There was a black SUV already there, engine running, a man she didn't know at the wheel. Mikhail opened the back passenger door for her. Miss Cross? Yes. One thing. Okay. If at any point while you are with us, you decide you want to leave, you come to me. Not her. Me. You say to me, Mikhail, I am leaving. I will take you out. No one else. Do you understand? Elena looked at him. She understood very slowly what he was offering her. It was not an offer a man like Mikhail was supposed to make. It was, she understood, a piece of him he was handing her privately in a loading bay under a fluorescent light. Thank you, she said quietly. He nodded. She got in the car. He shut the door. The SUV pulled out of the loading bay and onto the service street and turned north and merged into the stopped and going morning traffic of a city that Elena Cross had lived in her entire life without ever really noticing how loud it was. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the window and watched the buildings slide past, and she did not cry, and she did not sleep, and she did not talk. Somewhere above her, 42 stories up, a man she had met for one night was opening and closing his hand very slowly on the blanket, while a neurologist with round glasses watched with an expression of quiet, astonished attention, and said to the nurse beside him, very softly, "Get the nurse from last night. Call her back. He's asking for her." He doesn't know the word yet, but he's asking. Elena did not know this, because her phone was off, because Vera had told her in the elevator that her phone needed to stay off until the number was changed. She rode instead north through the city, through the parts of it she knew, and then the parts of it she didn't, and eventually the SUV turned through a gate that slid open for it without being asked, and drove down a ramp into a dim garage and stopped, and the door on her side opened, and Mikhail held his hand out to help her down, and she took it, because that was what she did now. She did not look back at the street behind her. She could not have said, if anyone had asked her, whether that was because she was afraid of what was behind her, or because she already knew she wasn't going to see it again for a long time. The garage smelled like concrete and cold rubber, the way all parking garages in the city smelled, and Elena had been in 1,000 of them. And this one was not any different except for the two men standing at the foot of the ramp, with their hands folded in front of them, the way men stand when they are waiting for a body to be delivered. They nodded at Mikhail. Mikhail nodded back. Nobody spoke. Elena followed him across the concrete in her rubber-soled nursing shoes, which squeaked, and she was suddenly embarrassed by how much noise she was making, which was such a ridiculous thing to be embarrassed about under the circumstances that she almost laughed out loud. Mikhail walked her to an elevator that was not a normal elevator. There was no button panel outside it. The door was brushed steel without any seam she could see until it opened for them. And then it closed behind them, and there was still no panel, just Mikhail putting his thumb flat against a small black square on the inside wall, and the elevator started moving up. "What floor are we going to?" Elena said. "The one you live on now." "Which is?" 41. "How many floors are in this building?" Mikhail looked at her sideways. "That is not a question I answer." "Okay." They rode up for a long time. Long enough that Elena understood 41 floors was not the top. Long enough that her ears popped. When the door finally opened, it opened onto a hallway that was not like the hallway at St. Jerome, but it was recognizably a cousin of it. The same kind of money had paid for both. Dark wood floors, low warm lights in the ceiling, art on the walls that Elena didn't recognize and was afraid to look at too closely in case it was real. A long runner carpet in a deep red that her feet made no sound on at all. "This is your floor," Mikhail said. "Only you and staff. Staff does not come in your rooms without your invitation. Kitchen is at the end of the hall to the left. Library is on the right through the double doors. Laundry comes twice a week. If you want something to eat, you pick up the phone in your rooms and you press 1. If you want me, you press 2. If you want Ms. Voss, you press 3. There is no press 4. Got it. Your rooms are here." He stopped at a door halfway down the hall and pushed it open for her. Elena's first thought, when she stepped inside, was that a mistake had been made. This could not be a room for her. This was a room for a woman who wore cream silk blouses and had her hair done in a salon on Madison Avenue, It had a four-poster bed bigger than Elena's old bedroom, made up in white linen so crisp it looked like it had been ironed on the bed. It had a sitting area with two chairs and a small round table by a window that ran from floor to ceiling and looked out at a view of the park that she had only seen before from the other side, from below, from the grass. It had a bathroom off to one side with a tub you could have drowned a horse in and a marble counter with towels folded on it in some way Elena couldn't quite replicate if you gave her a week of training. On the little round table by the window, there was a glass of water, a small plate of crackers, and a sealed card. Ms. Voss thought you would be hungry, Mikhail said. She also thought you might not want a stranger to bring you a meal today. Tell her thank you. You can tell her yourself. She is 2 hours away, but she will come when you want her. The card has the number of your new phone, which is in the drawer of the night table. Your old phone, we will take and dispose of, but not until you have copied what you need from it. I will send someone up in an hour for that. Is that all right? Yes. He nodded at her. He paused at the door. Miss Cross? Yes. Sleep first. Think later. Okay. He closed the door. She stood in the middle of the room for a long minute with the folder Vera Voss had given her in her hands. And the folder was heavy, and the linen on the bed was very white. And outside the window a hawk was making a slow wide circle over the trees in the park. And somewhere under all of it, Elena could feel the faint hum of a building that was bigger than she understood. She walked to the bed. She didn't take off her scrubs. She didn't get under the covers. She lay down on top of the linen on her side, curled around the folder, and she was asleep in 90 seconds. She slept for 11 hours. When she woke up, it was dark, and somebody had put a blanket over her. She didn't know who. She didn't want to know. She stayed on her side for a long time with her eyes open, watching the park and the buildings beyond it, and the city lights coming on one after another in the windows across the way. And she let herself, for just a minute, feel what she was going to have to not feel for a while, which was homesick. She missed her narrow, ugly apartment. She missed her pillow, which had been a bad pillow, but it had been her pillow. She missed the smell of onions in her stairwell. She missed knowing what the next day was going to be, even when the next day was going to be bad. Then she sat up because she was a nurse, and a nurse did the next thing. The next thing was a shower. The next thing after that was finding the new phone in the drawer of the night table, which was already set up with Mikhail's number under M and a generic V for Vera and a generic H for the house kitchen. No other contacts. Her old phone, she realized, was already gone. She did not remember anybody coming in for it. That was its own small fact to digest. She pressed one. A voice she didn't recognize, a woman's voice, soft and a little older, said, "Yes, Miss Cross. Would it be possible to have some soup?" "Of course. Any kind?" "Whatever's easiest." 10 minutes. It came in 12. It came on a tray, carried by a woman in her 50s in a plain black dress, who said her name was Irina and who did not smile and did not make small talk and set the tray on the little round table by the window and left. The soup was chicken, with dill in it, hot enough to burn the roof of Elena's mouth, and Elena ate all of it standing at the window, watching the park go completely black under the moon. When she was done, she pressed 2. "Yes, Miss Cross." "Is he awake?" There was a pause. "Yes." She closed her eyes. "How awake?" "He is off the ventilator. He is breathing on his own. He has opened his eyes. He has not spoken yet. The neurologist is hopeful. Miss Voss has asked me to tell you that you are not obligated to come to the hospital tonight, and that you should sleep again if you need to." "I slept 11 hours. "Yes." "I'd like to come." "I will bring a car to the garage in 20 minutes." She put on the only clothes in her duffel that weren't scrubs, which were a pair of jeans and a soft gray sweater, and the same sneakers she'd had on. She put her hair up. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and did not recognize the woman who looked back, and she said to her quietly, "You're fine. You're fine. You're fine." Until her own face started to agree with her. She went down to the garage. Mikhail was not in the car this time. A different driver was, a younger man with a neck tattoo barely hidden by his collar, who nodded at her in the mirror and said nothing. And the SUV pulled out and slid north through the late streets, through a version of the city Elena had never seen on foot, the version where you rode instead of walked, and the lights were longer and the sidewalks emptier. She was back on the 42nd floor of St. Jerome by 11. It was a different hospital at night. The charcoal hallway was dimmer. The nurses' station had one person at it instead of three. The glass walls of the suites had been frosted for privacy, white and soft like the inside of a snow globe. Mikhail was not at the door of 4207. A different man was. Bigger, somehow, than Mikhail, with a face that looked like it had been carved out of a block of wood by somebody in a hurry. He nodded at her and opened the door and did not introduce himself. She stepped inside. The neurologist with the round glasses was there, sitting on a small stool with his tablet on his knees, writing. Dr. Patel was there, leaning against the far wall with his arms folded, looking like he had aged 2 years in one day. Vera Voss was in the corner, on her phone, and she looked up when Elena came in, and she lifted one finger to say one moment, and she went back to her call in a low, even voice. And in the bed, Adrian Voss was sitting up. Not sitting up the way people sit up in bed, confident and tall. He was propped against 3 pillows. His eyes were open. The ventilator was gone. The tape marks from where it had been on his mouth were still faintly visible on the skin. There was an oxygen cannula under his nose instead. His hair had been combed back from his forehead by somebody. He had been shaved. Somebody had cleaned the blood from his hairline that Elena hadn't even noticed last night. He looked wrecked. He looked like a man who had been hit by a truck and had gotten up and walked away, and only in the last hour had started to understand the walking. He looked at her. Elena stopped in the doorway. He looked at her, and his eyes were the strangest color she had ever seen on a person. A pale, cold gray, almost silver in this light, the same gray his sister had but used differently, and they tracked across her face without rushing, the way a man looks at something he has been trying to remember. Mr. Voss, the neurologist said pleasantly, without looking up from his tablet, "This is your nurse from last night. Do you want to say hello?" Adrian Voss did not say hello. Adrian Voss just kept looking at her. Elena stepped into the room. Her legs felt uncertain. She walked to the foot of the bed and she said, trying to keep her voice professional and small, "Hi." He closed his eyes briefly, like he was listening to the shape of her voice instead of the word. When he opened them again, he said, "You." His voice was wrecked. It sounded like somebody had taken a knife to his throat, which, the neurologist had told them all that morning, was essentially what 6 days on a ventilator did. "It's me," Elena said. "I'm Elena. I was your nurse last—" "I know." She stopped. The neurologist looked up with mild scientific interest. "Do you remember her, Mr. Voss?" Adrian Voss was still looking at Elena. "I remember," he said. Her voice. The neurologist wrote something in his tablet. He was trying, Elena could see, not to look thrilled, and he was failing a little, and Dr. Patel by the far wall had his hand over his mouth in a way that was not quite medical. "Do you remember what she said to you?" the neurologist asked. Adrian's gray eyes did not move off Elena. "She said," he rasped, "her father is sick." Elena's hand went to her mouth. "She said," he went on, in that wrecked voice, taking each word like it cost him something, "she was tired. She said, somebody in this room thinks I'm still in there." Behind him, the heart rate monitor ticked quietly along. Elena could not feel her own legs. The neurologist very calmly said, "That's remarkable, Mr. Voss. That is genuinely remarkable. May I ask you a few more questions, and then I'll step out?" "No." "Mr. Voss, no." Adrian did not shift his eyes. "Out, all of you. Her, stay." Dr. Patel pushed off the wall. "Mr. Voss, we have protocols. Doctor," Vera's voice came from the corner, low and final. "Go. He'll be fine. I'll be outside the door. The nurse will call you if anything changes." Dr. Patel looked like he wanted to argue, and did not. The neurologist stood up, patting his tablet against his thigh, looking almost disappointed that he was losing his subject. Vera swept past them both, and as she went by she touched Elena's elbow very briefly and said in a voice pitched only for her, "Be gentle. He won't remember how to ask." Then they were all gone, and the door closed, and Elena was alone with him for the second time in her life, and this time he was looking at her. For a long minute, neither of them spoke. The city was outside the glass behind him, and it wasn't raining tonight, and the lights were sharper than they had been, and Elena realized absurdly that it had been exactly 24 hours. Last night at this time, she had been standing in the same room, introducing herself to a woman in a black wool coat. Last night at this time, she had been planning what she was going to say to the loan officer when her rent check bounced on the first. "Sit down," he said. "Mr. Voss, I should—" "Sit." She sat. In the chair by the window, the same chair. He closed his eyes again. His chest moved, shallow and careful, under the thin hospital gown. She could see, under the neckline of the gown, the top edge of a bruise the size of a dinner plate that had been a dark purple yesterday and had started turning yellow at the edges today. He had the kind of body. She had noticed it last night, in the clinical way you notice things as a nurse, and she noticed it now with a distinct unclinical heat creeping into her face, the kind of body that had been asked to survive a lot of things it should not have survived. "How long?" he said. "How long what?" "Was I gone?" "6 days." His jaw moved. "Who declared me?" She hesitated. "Say it," he said. "A man named Dr. Hale. He wasn't actually... The police are looking into him. He wasn't a consultant who should have been in your case." Something in that single syllable made Elena's scalp prickle. It was the sound of a man who was already running through a list in his head of who had let Hale into the building and who was going to pay for having done so. And she understood with a sick clarity that some of the people on that list were probably people she had smiled at that morning. "What's your name?" "Elena. Elena Cross." "Elena." The way he said it was like he was weighing it on his tongue, testing it. "Elena," he said again, softer. "You talked to me." "Yes." "All night?" Not all night. Most of it." "Why?" She had been ready for a lot of questions. She had not been ready for that one. She fidgeted with the edge of her sweater. She looked at her own hands. She thought for a bad second about lying. "Because," she said, "you didn't look like you were gone." He was quiet. "That's not a reason," he said. "No, I know. I'm sorry. That's not an apology I asked for." Okay." She made herself look at him. "I was scared," she said. "I was in a room with a man who everybody said was dead, and a sister who scared me, and a guy in the hall with a gun under his jacket. And the shift was long, and I couldn't stop looking at you. So I started talking. I talk when I'm scared. It's a bad habit. I'm sorry." He watched her. "You held my hand." Her face went hot. She looked down at her own hands again. "I fell asleep," she said quietly. "I fell asleep holding your hand. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I could lose my license for that. I'm a professional, and I fell asleep on shift, and I'm sorry." "Elena." "Yes." "Look at me." She looked at him. His gray eyes were not the eyes of a sick man. That was the unsettling thing. His body was a wreck, but his eyes were not. His eyes were clear and awake and hurt, and he was looking at her with something that she did not have a word for yet. It was not gratitude. Gratitude was soft. This wasn't soft. "I came back," he said, "because I could feel your hand." Elena's breath hitched. "That," he said, and the effort of speaking made his voice tear at the edges, "is not a thing I understand. I do not believe in a lot of things. I don't believe in voices from the other side. I don't believe in—" He stopped, breathed. "But I was far away. I was very far away. And I was going further. And then there was a weight on my hand, and I could feel it. And there was a voice. And I came back toward the voice. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" Do you?" "I think so." "Good." He closed his eyes. He seemed to lose color in his face. "Good. Because I need you to understand that I know what you did. I know exactly what you did. And I owe you for it, and I pay what I owe. You don't owe me anything. Elena? You don't." "Yes, I do. I was scared and lonely, and your hand was there, and it was the worst night of my life. And I talked to you because I was talking to myself, and you happened to be there. You don't owe me anything. You don't have to. Whatever Vera said to you, what did Vera say to you?" Elena stopped. He had opened his eyes again. They were sharper now. "What did Vera say to you, Elena?" She had a choice in that moment. She could tell him the truth, or she could tell him a version of the truth. She realized, in a clear and slightly nauseating way, starting to get good at picking versions. She gave me 3 options, Elena said. To stay with the police, to disappear, or to stay with your family until the people who are trying to kill me are no longer trying to kill me. The people who are trying to kill you? Yes. Tell me about that. She did. She told him about the black rose on the counter. She told him about the drawer in her bedroom that wasn't quite right. She told him about her mother at Aunt Rosa's. She told him about her father's infusion and the $4,200 a month. She told him about Reyes and his kind face and the line about being a woman in a walk-up who knew too much. She told him about Vera's offer exactly, because she had realized while she was telling it that she wanted him to hear it exactly and not a version of it. When she was done, he was silent for a long time. Then he said, "You chose to stay." "Yes." "Why?" "Because," she said, and this was the first answer she had not rehearsed before she spoke it, "I think I'm already in the water, and I think if I go back to shore, I drown. That's what it feels like. I don't know if it's right." He looked at her for a long second. "It's right," he said quietly. She let out a breath. "Listen to me, Elena." "Okay. Vera told you my family owes you. That is true, but it is not the whole truth. My family is not my family. My family is me and my sister. Everyone else in that apartment you are now in, including the man who brought you there tonight, works for me. They are loyal to me because I pay well and because I am useful to them. And some of them are loyal beyond that for their own reasons. None of that has anything to do with you." "Okay. What has to do with you is this." His voice had steadied a little, the way he was pacing himself. "I'm going to find the man who sent Hale. I'm going to find the man who sent someone to your apartment. Those may be the same man. They may not. When I find them, they are not going to exist anymore. This is not a thing I am telling you so that you will feel good about it. I am telling you so you know what kind of man is talking to you in this room. I am not a businessman. I am not a prince. I do not get to be a soft person now that I have woken up and met you. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Then here is what I am also telling you. I do not know what you are to me. I have known you for, I don't know how long I actually heard you for, a few hours of a night, but something about your voice pulled me back across a distance that I cannot explain. And I am not going to dress that up with a word I do not yet know how to say. I am not going to promise you things. I am not going to make you I am not going to romance you, Elena Cross. I am not a man who romances anybody. But I'm telling you that while you are under my roof does not fall on you. Nobody touches you. Nobody threatens you. Nobody takes from you what is yours. If you decide in a month that you want to walk out the front door of my building with a bag of cash and a new name, you will walk out. If you decide you want to stay, you will stay. That is a promise, and the promises I make, I keep. Are we clear? No. Elena was, to her own enormous embarrassment, about to cry. She pressed the heel of her hand hard into her eye. She nodded. "Yes," she said. "We're clear." "Good." He closed his eyes again. He was exhausted. She could see. Speaking that much had taken almost everything out of him. His fingers twitched on the blanket. "Elena." "Yes." "Would you do a thing for me?" "What?" "Would you sit in that chair until I fall asleep?" She did not trust her voice, so she just moved. She sat in the chair. She did not touch him. She did not pull the chair closer. She just sat, with her hands folded in her lap, and she watched the slow rise and fall of his chest under the thin gown, and the bruise at his collarbone going from purple to yellow, and the way his eyelashes were longer than she had noticed last night, and within 4 minutes he was asleep. Vera came back in then, very quietly. She looked at her brother. She looked at Elena in the chair. She did not say anything. She nodded. She left. Elena sat in the chair for another hour. It was almost 3 in the morning when she got back to the building. The driver with the neck tattoo did not speak to her on the way home either, which Elena was starting to appreciate. She rode up the elevator with Mikhail, who had apparently been waiting for her return, and neither of them talked, and when the elevator opened on the 41st floor, Mikhail walked her to her door. "Miss Cross." "Yes." "There is a man downstairs in the lobby." "A man." "Your detective, Reyes." Elena's stomach turned. He has been there since 10. He has a coffee cup that is now empty. He asked at the desk if a Miss Cross was residing in this building. The desk said Miss Cross was not a resident. Oh, I thought you should know. Elena looked down at her feet. Did he leave? Not yet. Is he going to leave? He is a patient man, I think, but yes, eventually. Mikhail. Yes. He told me to call every 48 hours. I know. Ms. Voss told me you told her that was a condition. I should call him. You should. But not tonight. Tonight it is 3 a.m., and you are tired, and you will say something you do not mean. Call him in the morning, from a line that is not in this building. Okay? She paused at her door. Mikhail? Yes. He said, in the room. He said he felt my hand. Mikhail looked at her. His face did the thing it almost never did, which was move. Yes, he said simply. That is consistent with what Ms. Voss and I observed. Is that difficult for you? If it helps, Miss Cross, I have known him for a long time. He does not say things for the benefit of saying them. If he told you that, then he felt your hand. And if he felt your hand, then you did a thing that He stopped. He seemed for a second to argue with himself. A thing I did not do. I sat in that hallway for 6 nights with a gun in my jacket, and it was a nurse from Washington Heights who brought him back. That is a fact I will carry, Miss Cross. I am not angry about it. I am. I am grateful. I do not often say grateful. Please do not ask me to say it again. Okay. Sleep. Okay. Mikhail? Yes. Thank you for today. For the thing you said in the elevator this morning. It stands. I know. He nodded. He left. She went into her room, she shut the door. She sat on the end of the absurd 4-poster bed in her sneakers, and she put her face in her hands, and she did not cry because she was too tired to cry. But she sat like that for a long time. She called her mother in the morning. Aunt Rosa's number, from the new phone. Her mother picked up on the first ring and said, Elena? In a voice that was 2 breaths short of a sob, and Elena said, Mom, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm somewhere safe. And her mother said, Are you in trouble? And Elena said, Yes, but I am being taken care of. And her mother said, very softly, Elena, who is taking care of you? And Elena closed her eyes and said, The family of a patient from work, Mom. That's all I can say. Please don't ask. Her mother was silent for a long time. Mija. Yes. Is this patient a bad man? Elena opened her eyes. She looked at the park below her. I don't know yet, she said. I think he has done bad things. I think people who have done worse things are trying to kill him. I think he is trying to keep me alive in the middle of that. I don't know what that makes him. I don't know what that makes me for being here. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I pulled you into this. Elena. Yes, you listen to me. I'm listening. I was born in a country where sometimes the man with the gun is the one keeping you safe from the man with the gun. Okay? That is a thing I know. That is a thing your grandmother knew before me. You are not the first woman in this family to be where you are. You are not the worst woman either. If you are being honest with me, and you are being a good person inside your own head about what you are doing and what you are not doing, then I trust you. I raised you. I know what you are. Mom, don't cry on the phone. You'll use up your minutes. Elena laughed. She was crying. She laughed anyway. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Call me again in 2 days. Not from the same number if you can help it. Your aunt is making me chicken. Good. She is a terrible cook. I know, Mom. Okay, bye, baby. She hung up. She sat on the end of the bed for another long minute. Then she got up and she called Detective Reyes, and she told him in the flattest, most professional voice she had that she was safe, that she was in a private residence with the family of her patient, that she would not be disclosing the address, that she would make herself available for any deposition they required at a neutral location of his choosing with 48 hours' notice, and that she would call him again in 2 days. She expected him to argue. He did not. He said only, Miss Cross, I hope you know what you're doing. She said, I don't. but I'm doing it anyway. And he said, that'll have to be good enough, and hung up. She spent the rest of that day in her rooms. She ate what Irina brought her. She read through the folder Vera had given her. The numbers in the folder were not numbers Elena had ever seen attached to her own name before. There was an account, in her name, at a bank she had never banked with enough in it to cover her father's treatment for the next 2 years and leave something over. There was a medical power of attorney. There was an NDA. There was a confidentiality clause about Hale and the Morettis that, when she read it carefully, amounted to a promise that she would not volunteer anything to the press, which she had no intention of doing anyway. She did not sign anything. Vera had told her not to, today. She went back to the hospital that night. She went back the next night. She went back the night after that. Adrian was on his feet by the third night, slowly leaning on the neurologist, then on a railing, then on Mikhail, then on his own hand against the wall. He didn't look at Elena when she came in the third night. He was too busy being furious that his body would not move as fast as his brain wanted it to. He was not, she was learning, a graceful patient. He was a patient who apologized to nobody for cursing when he was tired. He was a patient who dismissed the neurologist twice in one afternoon for asking too many questions. He was a patient who, once, on the fourth night, looked up at her from a chair he had had to sit down in because his legs had given out, and said, "Don't make a face." "I'm not making a face." "You were making a face." "I was being empathetic." "Don't be empathetic at me, Elena. Be useful at me." "What's useful?" "Make me get up." So she made him get up. The relationship between them, in those first days, was a thing she did not have a word for. It was not the relationship between a nurse and a patient, because she was not, in any formal sense, his nurse anymore. Dr. Patel was his doctor. 2 rotating nurses from St. Jerome's private wing were doing his actual care. She just came at night for reasons that were never explained and never questioned, and she sat, and they talked, and sometimes they didn't. It was not the relationship between a man and a woman either, not yet, because he had told her clearly, in that first night when he had been hoarse and propped against 3 pillows, that he was not going to romance anybody. And he had not. He had not touched her. He had not leaned toward her. He had not made the small testing jokes men make when they are trying to see if a woman will laugh. He talked to her the way he talked to Vera, except less carefully, because Vera was family and Elena was not, and he had to explain more things to Elena, and that seemed to please him in a way he did not quite let on. On the 5th night, he asked her without looking at her, "Do you want to see your mother?" Of course I want to see my mother." "Mikhail will pick her up from your aunt's. He'll bring her to the building. You'll have the sitting room on your floor for as long as you want. He'll take her back when she's ready. It's done if you want it done." Adrian. "What?" It's a car and a driver. It is not a thing. Say yes or no." "Yes." "Good." He saw her mother 3 times in those first weeks, without ever meeting her. He arranged every visit. He arranged for her father's infusion schedule to be paid through a medical foundation whose name Elena did not recognize, and which, she strongly suspected, was about 6 hours old on the day it funded her father's Tuesdays. When she tried to thank him for it, he said, "Elena, stop. This is the cheapest thing I have ever done for a person who mattered to me. Let it be cheap. Let me do it." It was on the 7th night that everything changed. She had come up the elevator at around 9. She had come through the front door of the floor he was living on now, so not 4207 anymore. They had moved him to a different private suite 2 nights ago for security, one that had no windows facing the street. And Mikhail had been at that door, and Mikhail had stopped her, and Mikhail had said, in a voice very unlike his usual voice, "Miss Cross, a moment." "What?" "Ms. Voss would like to see you first, before you go in." Elena's stomach did the thing it had started to do whenever one of them said, "Ms. Voss would like to see you first." Vera was in the small family room at the end of the hallway. She was alone. She was not on her phone. She looked for the first time Elena had ever seen her, tired. Not messy tired, not dark under the eyes tired, a deeper tired, the kind that lived in the shoulders and the line of the mouth. "Sit down, Elena." "Okay. We have a problem." "Okay." "Salvatore Moretti is dead." Elena blinked. "What?" "He died last night in his home. A stroke, the doctor says. A massive one. He was 81. His heart stopped in the middle of dinner. Before you ask, no, we did not do it. We were not, in fact, anywhere close to a position to do it. He died of being an old man who ate too much salt for 70 years. Okay. The problem, Elena, is his son. Which son? Paolo? The oldest. Paolo is not his father. Paolo is 47 years old. He is extremely intelligent. He has a degree from a business school I will not name because it would embarrass them, and he has been waiting very patiently for his father to die for about 15 years. He inherits everything as of this morning. And Paolo is not a man who sends a dead rose to make a point. Paolo is a man who sends a man with a camera to take a photograph of your mother's kitchen window and then make sure you see the photograph. Elena felt her mouth dry out. He did that. This afternoon. The photograph arrived by a courier to a restaurant where I sometimes have lunch, in an envelope addressed to me by name. Your mother is fine. Your aunt is fine. Mikhail moved both of them 2 hours ago to a location neither of them knew about until they got there. They are safe. They will stay safe. Oh my God. Elena, look at me. She looked. My brother does not know about this yet. Why not? Because my brother is a week out of a coma, and if he finds out right now that Paolo Moretti has sent a photograph of your mother's kitchen to me, he will get up out of that hospital bed and go kill Paolo Moretti tonight, and he will not survive the trip. He is not strong enough yet. He thinks he is? He is not. I have seen him after injuries before. He is, I would say, 60%. He is going to be 100% in about 3 weeks. I would like him to live 3 more weeks. I would like to tell him about the photograph in 3 weeks, when he is standing up by himself and can walk into a room full of men and walk out of it again. Okay, but that means, Elena, that I need you to go into that room tonight, and I need you to not tell him. I need you to sit with him. I need you to be what you have been, and I need you to let me handle Paolo until my brother can handle Paolo himself. Elena was very quiet. Can you do that? Vera said. Elena thought about it. I don't know, she said, honestly. I'm not a good liar, Vera. I'm not. He looks at me and he knows when I'm holding something back. He's already called me on it twice this week, about small things. Vera nodded. Then don't lie, she said. Don't offer information. If he asks you directly, tell him, but don't bring it in the room with you. If you can do that, that's all I'm asking. Okay? One more thing. Okay. Vera stood up. She smoothed her trousers. Her gray eyes were, for the first time, almost warm. I have been a person, she said, for a long time, who did not particularly like other women. I have found them, generally, to be either competition or an inconvenience. I say this because I want you to understand the weight of what I'm about to say. You have been, Elena Cross, a surprise. You have been a good surprise. I did not expect you to be. I expected you to be a useful nurse with a price. I was wrong. I am not often wrong. And when I am, I say so I am saying so. I do not know what you are going to be to my brother. I do not know what you are going to be to me. But I want you to know that if something happens to you, in this building or outside of it, at the hand of the Morettis or anybody else, that will be treated by me personally as a thing that happened to my own family. Do you hear me? Elena's eyes were stinging. I hear you. Good. Now go see him. He's been asking for you since 6. Don't tell him I said that either. He is insufferable when he thinks he's been obvious. Elena laughed. It came out wet. She stood up. She smoothed her own jeans. She walked out of the small family room and down the charcoal hallway to the suite where Adrian Voss was, and she took a breath in at the door, and she let it out slowly, and she put her hand on the handle, and she understood, finally and completely, that she was no longer a nurse visiting a patient. She was a woman walking into a room where a man was waiting for her, and there was a war coming for both of them. And for the moment, in the next 60 seconds before she opened the door, she was the only person in the building who knew it. She opened the door. Adrian was sitting up in the chair by the window when she came in, not the bed, which was a small thing and also an enormous one. He was in a plain gray sweatshirt and loose black pants, and somebody had found him a pair of thick wool socks that didn't belong to him, and he looked, for the first time since she had known him, like a man and not a patient. There was a book face down on the table beside him. There was a glass of water that was mostly ice. He had not turned his head when the door opened. He was watching the skyline, where a plane was making a slow, blinking descent somewhere toward Newark, and his profile was sharp and thoughtful and not entirely present. "Hey," Elena said. "You're late." 8 minutes. 8 minutes is late, Elena. Mikhail stopped me in the hall. That was true, and it was a version of the truth she was choosing, which was the whole trick Vera had taught her 10 minutes ago. He didn't look at her, but the corner of his jaw did the thing that meant he was listening with more than one ear. What did Mikhail want? He wanted to tell me your neurologist is coming tomorrow at 10, and you're going to pretend you don't remember we agreed to that. I'm going to pretend, Adrian said calmly, that the neurologist does not exist because I'm tired of the neurologist. You have to see him. Do I? Yes. Whose side are you on? She walked across the room and sat on the low bench at the end of the bed, where she usually sat, because Adrian did not like her hovering and did not like her sitting in the visitor chair, which he had informed her on the third night was a chair for hospital administrators, and Elena Cross was not a hospital administrator. The bench was uncomfortable, but it had become hers. I'm on the side of you being able to walk a block without holding the wall, she said. I can walk a block. You can walk to the bathroom. That is a block. That's 22 feet, Adrian. I measured. Why did you measure? Because you kept telling me you could walk a block. He laughed. It was small and it hurt him a little in the ribs. She could see it go across his face and get swallowed. But it was a laugh, and she had started collecting them, because he hadn't laughed in the first 4 days, and she had decided privately that a day was not a success unless he laughed once, which was a private rule she would not admit to Vera or Mikhail, or especially to him. You're different tonight, he said. I'm not. You are. He turned his head, finally, and looked at her. She had been ready for this, and she still wasn't ready for this. His eyes on her were a thing she had not quite gotten used to. He looked at people the way an old dog looked at a closed door, complete, tired, without apology for the looking. Tell me what's wrong, Elena. Nothing's wrong. Elena. Long day. You worked? No, I called my mother. I called the detective. I read a book. Which book? One Vera left in the library. Which one? Something Russian. Elena. Anna Karenina, she admitted. His mouth moved. Not a smile. The place where a smile would be. How far did you get? Page 40. Put it down. Why? Because it's going to make you sadder, and you don't need anything right now that makes you sadder. She almost told him then. She felt it come up under her sternum, the shape of it. The sentence that would be there is a photograph of my mother's kitchen window in a restaurant downtown, and she felt how easy it would be to let him have it, because he would take it from her and make it his to carry. And she was so tired of carrying things. It had been 7 days. She had slept in a bed that wasn't hers for 7 days. She had talked to her mother through 2 different burner numbers. She had not worn her own clothes since Monday. She had not touched the outside of this building. She had watched a man she barely knew teach himself how to stand up. And every night she walked back into her rooms alone at 2 a.m. and sat on the end of her absurd bed and did not cry, because crying was for people who had the time. She could have told him. She didn't. Vera's voice was in her head, very clear. He will get up out of that hospital bed and go kill Paolo Moretti tonight, and he will not survive the trip. I'm okay, she said, just tired. He watched her for a long moment. He was not, she knew by now, a man you lied to comfortably. He took his time deciding whether to believe her, and tonight, to her small relief and her smaller shame, he decided to. Come here, he said. What? Come here. Sit where I can see you without turning my neck. I pulled something in it this morning, and Dr. Patel will be insufferable if I pull it again. I'm sitting where you can see me. You're sitting behind my shoulder. You literally just turned your head and pulled something. Come. She got up, rolling her eyes to cover what she was actually doing, which was trying very hard to not let her face show anything, and she sat in the chair across from him, the hospital administrator chair, because that was the only other chair in the room, and he looked faintly pleased that she had submitted to it. How was your mother? Good. My aunt is a bad cook. She keeps telling me that. What's wrong with your aunt's cooking? She underseasons everything. My dad used to say her food was respectful of the ingredients, which is the meanest thing you can say about someone's cooking without actually saying anything. Your father sounds like a mean man. My father was the nicest person I've ever known. He made fun of people, but it was always affectionate. He used to call me Bertie because I had... She stopped. She had never told him any of this. She had not intended to start. I had a chickenpox scar on my chin that looked like... It didn't matter. He called me Bertie. Is... What? You said was. Your father is alive, Elena. She looked down at her hands. Yes, she said. He's alive. I keep using past tense. I don't know why. He hasn't been really my dad since the kidney thing started. He gets confused. He doesn't always know who I am when I visit. So I guess I started talking about him in past tense without noticing. I should stop doing that. Adrian was quiet. Do you know, he said after a while, that my father is alive? I didn't. He is 83. He lives in a house in a country you have never been to. He has not spoken to me in 12 years. He doesn't approve of what I am. What are you? He looked at her. A man who took the thing he built and made it bigger than he built it, and worse than he built it, and without his permission. She nodded, slowly. Do you miss him? Yes. That was the whole answer. He didn't add to it. He didn't soften it. He just said yes in a voice that made Elena's chest hurt, and she understood in a quick, clean way that Adrian Voss was a man who had built himself out of the absence of a father, and that he had never fully forgiven himself for how he had built. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. I'm allowed. No, you're not. Sorry is for your own people. I'm not your people, Elena. She looked up. Aren't you? She said. It came out before she could think about it. Quiet. Not a flirt. Not a move. Just a small, honest sentence. His jaw went tight. His gray eyes dropped, briefly, to her mouth, and came back up. And he looked at her with that same unapologetic completeness he always looked at her with. And he said, very carefully, Elena, I know what you said. Good. I'm not asking. I know you're not. I know what you were. They sat in silence for a long time. The plane outside the window finished its descent and disappeared behind the taller buildings. Somewhere on the floor, a phone rang and was picked up on the first ring and stopped. The radiator ticked, which was strange because Elena could not have told you if there even was a radiator, but something in the walls ticked like one, slow and domestic. Elena. Yes. Tell me a thing about yourself I don't know. Which thing? Anything. She thought about it. I wanted to be a vet, she said. A veterinarian. Yes. Until I was 19, I worked at a shelter in high school. I loved it. I loved the dogs. I loved the bad ones especially, the ones who'd been hit, who snapped at everybody. I had a touch with them. She laughed, a small, embarrassed sound. I thought that was going to be my life. Why isn't it? Because vet school is expensive and nursing school is not. And because my dad got sick my freshman year of college, and because I looked at the numbers one weekend and decided it was easier to be a person who could help one person than a person who could help dogs. I don't know. That sounds dramatic. It wasn't. It was a Tuesday. I filled out a form. Life happened. Do you regret it? No, she said, and she was surprised to hear herself. Actually, no. I love what I do. I didn't think I would. I thought I'd spend my whole career missing the dogs, but I don't. I like people more than I thought I would. Broken people, the ones who are scared. I have a touch with them too, I think. It's the same touch, I think. He was watching her. Yes, he said. It is. She looked down. Adrian? Yes. Can I ask you something? Yes. Did you want to be this? He didn't answer right away. Yes, he said. And no, I wanted the power. I did not want the loneliness of it. I thought the second thing would stay small and the first thing would stay big. I had it backwards. I was 23. I didn't know how math worked yet. She nodded. Are you lonely now? His gray eyes held hers. Not tonight, he said. She had to look away. She made some excuse about her water glass, which was not empty and did not need to be refilled, and she took it anyway, and she walked across the room on unsteady legs to the little side counter, and she refilled it, And when she turned back around, he was looking at the window again, and she was grateful for it. They sat for another hour. They talked about nothing. He asked her at one point how her father's infusion had gone on Tuesday. She told him it had gone fine, that the nurse there had called her mother to say his labs looked better than last month. He said good. He did not say you're welcome for having made it possible, because that was not something he said, and she did not say thank you, because he had told her twice in the first week that if she said thank you one more time about the infusion, he was going to throw the card of the foundation into the river. At midnight, Mikhail opened the door to say the car was ready. Adrian looked at Elena. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Tell Mikhail if you need anything. I will. Elena. Yes. He almost said something. She watched him not say it. Go home, he said instead. Down. The next morning, everything got worse. Elena was eating toast at the little round table in her rooms when Mikhail knocked and came in, without waiting, which he had never done before. He had his phone in his hand. His face was a face she had seen only once, briefly, on the morning after the attack at St. Jerome, when he had put the phone to his ear and said, "We have a problem." Miss Cross. What? Get dressed, pants, shoes you can run in, 5 minutes. What's happening? Paolo Moretti has sent 3 men to the front entrance of this building. They are not going to come inside. They are not going to try. They are standing on the sidewalk in dark coats, and they are there to be seen. We have someone watching them. They have someone watching us. This is a game. It is not the game I am worried about. What are you worried about? Come with me. She followed him. He took her up, not down, up 2 floors in the elevator without saying anything, her in her jeans and her hair still damp, her heart in her throat. The door opened on a floor Elena had never seen. It was not an apartment floor. It was an office floor. There was a glass-walled conference room in the middle of it, with a long table, and at the head of the table Vera was standing, in a black sweater and no jewelry, and at the far end of the table sat Adrian, in the same sweatshirt he had been wearing last night, and standing behind Adrian was a man Elena had never seen before. Older, heavy-set, wearing a dark suit that had been expensive a long time ago and was still worn with the dignity of a man who remembered why he had bought it. Elena, Adrian said before she was even through the door. What? Come here. She went. Vera held out a chair for her, next to Adrian's, and Elena sat in it, and Vera sat on Adrian's other side, and the older man behind them did not sit at all. Tell her, Adrian said. Vera took a breath. Elena, my brother knows about the photograph. Elena looked at Adrian. I know. His voice was flat and careful. I know you didn't tell me. Vera told me this morning. I asked her a direct question this morning about what was keeping Paolo quiet, and she told me. Oh. I am not, Adrian said, angry with you. Okay. I would like to be very clear about that. Vera asked you not to tell me. You did what she asked. I am not angry with you. I am angry with her. You are angry with me for 6 seconds, Vera said, and then you will stop because I was right, and you will admit I was right, and then we will move on. I will admit no such thing. You absolutely will. Elena understood, in a way she had not fully understood before, that she was watching a conversation that had happened 1,000 times in this family, in some form, about something, since the 2 of them had been children. The way they talked to each other, the way Vera did not look at him while she was cutting him off, and how he did not look at her while he was being cut off. It was not a fight. It was a way of being siblings. Moving on, Vera said. Elena, Paolo has sent men to our door. The photograph of your mother was the first move. The men on the sidewalk are the second. The third is something we have to guess at, and we don't have the time to guess wrong. My brother has decided to meet with him. Meet with him? Yes. He is not strong enough to... He is not, Adrian said. You are correct about that. Then don't. Elena. Don't. Send somebody. Send this gentleman. She gestured at the older man behind him. Send Vera. Send me. I'll go. I'll tell him whatever you need me to tell him. Just don't. Elena, stop. She stopped. He looked at her. The reason I am meeting with him, he said slowly, like he was explaining a shape to someone who had never seen that shape, is because if I send somebody else, Paolo will understand that I am not strong enough. and he will kill me inside a month. If I go myself, and I sit across from him, and I am still Adrian, then he will understand that the thing he thought he could take has teeth. That is the whole calculation. There is no third option. I'm sorry.
I know that is not what you wanted to hear.
Elena pressed her palms flat on the table to stop them from shaking. When? She said. Tonight. Where? I'm not going to tell you where. Why? Because if something goes wrong, I don't want anyone in a room with you for the next 72 hours to be able to beat that out of you. Adrian. Elena. She closed her eyes. Look at me. She opened them. I am coming back, he said. You can't promise that. I know. Then don't.
I am coming back, he said again, steady, the way you say a thing to a dog that is scared to bring it to you. Because I have reasons now. I didn't have reasons a month ago. I have them now. I am coming back. He was looking at her in a way she had never been looked at. It was not a tender look. There was nothing soft about it. It was the look of a man who had decided she was one of the reasons, and who was not going to say that out loud in front of his sister and his lawyer and Mikhail, but who was going to make sure she understood it anyway. She understood it. Her throat hurt. Okay, she said. Okay. What do you need from me? I need you to stay in this building until I come back. I need you to not call the detective until I come back. I need you to not open your door to anyone who is not Mikhail or Vera, and if anyone who is not Mikhail or Vera knocks on your door, I need you to press the number 2 on the phone in your room and wait. Can you do that? Yes. Good. She got up. She leaned down before she could stop herself, and she kissed him on the forehead. She had never done that. She had never touched him at all, since the first night with her hand in his. It was the fastest kiss in the history of kisses. It was dry and brief, and it landed above his left eyebrow, on the small old scar that split it clean in half, and she stood up again before anyone else in the room had quite registered what had happened. Come back, she said. I mean it. Come back. Elena, I mean it. I know. She walked out of the conference room, and she got on the elevator, and she went down to her floor, and she got into her rooms, and she closed her door, and she sat on the floor with her back against her door, and she put her face into her knees, and she cried like she had not cried since she was a child. Mikhail went with him. Vera went with him. The older man with the worn suit went with him. 3 other men she did not know went with him. They left at 7 p.m. through the garage in a small caravan of 3 unremarkable cars, and Elena knew this only because Irina came up with soup at 7:15 and told her, in the plainest voice, "They are gone," and left. Elena did not eat the soup. She sat at the window. She watched the park. She watched the lights come on. She watched a nurse walk a man in a bathrobe along the path in the park below, holding his elbow, and she thought, that is the whole world right there, on one path, and I don't get to be in it tonight. She turned on the television in her rooms for the first time since she had moved in. She could not have told you what was on it. It was a news channel. Somebody was talking about weather. She muted it. She left the picture on for the light. She called her mother because she needed to hear a voice that was not her own. Miha. Hi, Mom. You sound bad. I'm okay. Elena. I'm okay. Can you just talk to me about anything? About your knee, about Aunt Rosa, about the soup you had today? Her mother, who had been a mother for a very long time, did not ask any more questions. She talked. She talked about her knee, which was fine but a little stiff in the mornings. She talked about Aunt Rosa, who had started going to a new church that Elena's mother did not approve of because the music was too loud. She talked about the soup, which had been lentils, and about the lentils, which had come from a can, and about Aunt Rosa's refusal to soak dry lentils from scratch like a civilized person. She talked for 40 minutes. Elena did not say very much. Her mother understood that she did not need to say very much, and her mother just kept talking. Somewhere around the 30-minute mark, her mother said, casually, Elena. Yes. The man. Elena did not answer. You love him. Mom, answer me. I don't know. Miha. I don't know, Mom. Don't ask me tonight. Don't ask me tonight, please. Okay. Don't hang up. I'm not hanging up. Don't hang up, Mom. I'm not hanging up, baby. I'm right here. Listen to me breathe. I'm right here. At 11:32, Elena heard a car come up the ramp. She
She knew the sound of the ramp because she had listened for it every night for 7 nights. She knew the difference between the SUVs the family used and the cleaning service vans that came at 6 in the morning. She knew this sound. It was 3 cars. They had all come back. 3 cars had gone out. 3 cars had come back. Mom, I have to go. Okay, baby. I love you. I love you, mija. Go. She hung up. She ran. She was in her socks. She did not stop for her shoes. She went out of her rooms and down the hall and into the elevator in her socks. And she pressed 2 on the panel that was only a thumbprint reader for her now, and the elevator went down and down and down. And when it opened in the garage, she stepped out into the cold concrete and the exhaust smell in the row of headlights, and she saw them. Vera was already out of the first car, talking into her phone, her face tight. Mikhail was supporting Adrian at the second car. The older man in the worn suit was leaning against the third car with one hand over his eye. Adrian was on his feet. He was standing. But there was blood on his sweatshirt, a lot of it, soaking the left side from collarbone to waist, and Mikhail had his arm around Adrian's back. And Adrian was walking carefully the way people walked when they had been told not to jostle something. Elena, Adrian said when he saw her in the same voice he used in the hospital suite. Oh my God, I'm fine. You're not mine, mostly not mine. That is a lot of blood. Elena, breathe. She ran to him. Mikhail, without being told, let her put her shoulder under Adrian's other arm, and the 3 of them moved together toward the elevator. And as they moved, she felt him shake, and she said, Adrian. And he said, I know. And she said, sit down, we can get a chair. And he said, no, up to the floor, not here, not where cameras are. And she understood, and she kept going, and she did not cry on him because it was not the moment for that. They got him into the elevator. They got him up to the medical floor, which Elena had not known was a medical floor until tonight, which was a thing to think about later. There was a real hospital bed in one of the rooms. There were monitors on a cart. There were IV bags already in a little fridge. There was a man in scrubs who Elena had never seen, who was waiting, and who moved very fast and very professionally, and who said, without looking up, put him down. Tell me what happened. Tell me what he was stabbed with and how long ago. Paring knife, Adrian said from the bed. 3 inches, maybe. About 45 minutes. Left upper chest below the collarbone. I don't think it hit anything important. It felt shallow. I walked out. Walked out of what? The doctor said. Walked out of the room I was in. Vitally relevant question, Mr. Voss. What did you do after you walked out of the room? I got into a car. Did you pass out in the car? No. Liar, Vera said from the door. For 2 minutes, Adrian admitted. Not more. The doctor was cutting the sweatshirt off him. Elena stood on the other side of the bed and she did what she knew how to do, which was pass things when they were asked for, and hold pressure when she was told to hold pressure, and keep her own face from showing anything when the doctor peeled the fabric away and she saw the wound. It was not a shallow wound. Adrian was lying about how shallow. It was a wound that was still bleeding, and the edges of it looked like the edges of something that had gone between ribs, and the doctor looked at it and looked at Adrian and said, very calmly, Mr. Voss, I'm not working on you down here. I don't have the tools. We're moving you to the room next door, which is the one you paid for the equipment in last year, and I'm doing this properly. Sedation, anesthesia, the whole thing. You are a week out of a coma, and I am not taking chances with your left lung. Fine. You consent? I consent. Who is authorized on your medical? Adrian looked at Elena. She is, he said. Vera made a soft sound, not surprise, acknowledgement, like a fact had been entered into a ledger she had been keeping. Okay, the doctor said. Miss Cross, Elena Cross. Miss Cross, I need you to come with me. You are going to sit outside the room, and if anything goes sideways in the next 90 minutes, which it will not, you are going to make 3 decisions that I will explain to you on the way. Okay? Mr. Voss. Yes. I'll see you on the other side. Adrian's eyes found Elena's. He was very pale. He was trying, she could see, to be casual about something. Elena. Yes. Paolo Moretti is dead. What? He's dead. He swung at me with the paring knife. I didn't expect him to do it himself. I thought he'd send someone. He did it himself. Mikhail shot him. It's done. Adrian, you're safe. Your mother is safe. It's done. He closed his eyes. Wake me up, he said. To the doctor, to Elena, to anybody. When it's done.
And then they wheeled him out of the room, and the doors of the other room closed, and Elena stood in the hallway in her socks, with his blood on her hands, and she did not move for a long time. He came out of surgery at 2:23 in the morning. The doctor came out first. He was wiping his hands on a towel. He looked at Elena, who was sitting on the floor in the hall because she had refused the chair, and he said, in the plainest voice, "He's fine. The blade went in about 3 centimeters, between the third and fourth rib. Missed the lung by, not a lot, but by enough. Missed the big vessels. He's going to be sore, and he's going to be slower for another 2 weeks. He is going to be furious about being slower for 2 weeks, and I'm going to need you to help me with that because he likes you more than he likes me. Okay? He's awake. He's asking for you. He shouldn't be. He should be unconscious, but he has a metabolism from a different century and he's awake. 2 minutes, then he sleeps. Real sleep. I'll put him out with something if I have to. Okay?" She went in. He was on his back, covered to the waist with a white sheet, with a bandage across his chest and an IV in his arm and the pulse monitor on his finger. His eyes were half open. He looked like he had been run over and picked up and put back down. He looked, somehow, at peace. "Hey," Elena said quietly. "Hey. I thought you said you were coming back." "I did come back." "You're not allowed to bleed like that. That wasn't in the deal." "I'll renegotiate the deal." "Adrian." "Yes."
She didn't have the word. She was trying to find it. "I know. I was really scared. I know. Don't do that again. Don't do that to me again." Elena. "What? Come here." Oh.
She came. She was still in her socks. She was still wearing the jeans from this morning, now with dried blood on them from helping him into the elevator. She leaned over the bed. He reached up with his right hand, the one that didn't have the IV, and he touched her cheek. It was the first time he had touched her. His hand was rough. It was warm. His thumb moved very slowly across her cheekbone, and she realized he was brushing a tear off her skin. "I'm a very difficult man to love," he said, low, for her only. "I'm not telling you this to push you away. I'm telling you because I have decided, tonight, while a man was swinging a knife at me in a restaurant I will not tell you the name of, that if I lived, I was going to stop pretending about you. I am not good at this. I do not have the vocabulary for it. I am sorry for that. But I did not come back to that building tonight to lie in a bed and be a patient. I came back to look at you in my apartment, and I am going to, every night, for as long as you will let me, until you tell me to stop. Adrian, don't answer me."
"Why?"
"Because you are going to answer me with words you will mean and not take back, and it is 2 in the morning, and I am drugged, and there is blood on the floor. I don't want your answer tonight. I want it next week. I want it when you have slept, and when you have seen me in a clean shirt. Go to bed. Come back in the morning." She stood there for a long second. She pressed her cheek for just a moment into his palm. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Sleep."
"I will." She walked to the door. She turned at the door. "Adrian?" "Yes. I'm not going anywhere." "I know. I want you to hear me say it." "I heard you." "Sleep." "Elena." "Yes. I heard you." "Dad."
She did not sleep. She went back to her rooms. She took off the jeans with his blood on them, and she put them in the bathtub and she ran cold water over them, which was the thing her mother had taught her to do when she was 9. Always cold, cold for blood, hot for grease, and she watched the water turn pink and then clear, and she wrung the jeans out and she hung them over the shower rod and she took a shower herself, a very long one, and when she came out of the bathroom in a towel, she stood at the window and she looked at the park in the dark. She did not cry anymore. She had cried enough. She sat on the end of the bed. She thought about her life. She thought about the girl at the bus stop on 43rd and Halston, with the damp collar, and the bad phone, and the $800 in checking,
and she thought about the girl pressing her forehead against the bus window and doing her father's math 3 times. And she thought about that girl with a kind of careful tenderness, the way she sometimes thought about patients she had lost. That girl was not entirely gone. That girl had not exactly died. That girl was still in her somewhere, and Elena understood that that girl was going to have to be talked to in the coming weeks, and reassured that the new life she had stumbled into was not a betrayal of her. That girl had been doing her best. The new life was going to have to honor that. She thought about Adrian. She thought about the gray of his eyes and the scar through his eyebrow and the way his thumb had moved across her cheekbone, slow, like he had been working up to it for a week and had finally allowed himself. She thought about what he had said. "I am a very difficult man to love." She thought about whether that was a warning or a confession, and she decided it was both, and she decided she was not afraid of either. She thought about her mother on the phone saying "you love him," and about herself saying "I don't know," and about how that had been true at the time, and about how it was not quite true now. And she sat with that shift inside herself, the small private shape of it, and she was honest with herself about it, and she did not flinch from it. Somewhere around 4 in the morning, she fell asleep sitting up on the end of the bed, in a towel, with the curtains open, and the first pale blue of dawn came in through the glass and touched the side of her face. And the city, far below her, began quietly to wake up without her. At 7, Irina knocked. Elena was under the covers by then. She had moved herself at some point in the night. Irina came in with a tray, eggs, toast, coffee, a small single white flower in a small glass vase, which was not something Irina normally brought. "From Mr. Voss," Irina said. "He is awake. He is eating. He is insulting the doctor. Miss Voss asked me to tell you he is, in her exact words, more insufferable than usual, which is a good sign." Elena laughed. It hurt her chest a little, the laugh, because she had not laughed in too many hours. "Thank you, Irina. He asked when you were coming. Tell him after I eat. He said you would say that. He said to tell you, take your time." Elena smiled. "Tell him I will," she said. Irina nodded and left. Elena ate. She drank her coffee. She looked at the small white flower, which was, she was almost sure, not a rose. Roses were apparently over in this family. This was something else. A peony, maybe. A small peony in a small glass. A flower a person had chosen on purpose because it was not a rose. And she understood the message. And she understood that he was a man who, even with a bandage across his chest, paid attention to symbols. She got up. She got dressed. Slowly. In the cream sweater Vera had sent up on the 3rd day, which she had refused to wear and had now decided she was going to wear. In jeans that were not the ones from last night. In her sneakers, which squeaked because she was not giving up her sneakers for anybody. She went down the hall. She went up 2 floors in the elevator, which she now had access to on her thumbprint, which was a small new fact she had just learned that morning. She went down a different hall. She knocked once on a door. He said through it in a voice that was tired and dry and entirely alive, "It's open." She opened it, and she stepped inside, and she closed the door behind her, and he looked up from the chair where he was sitting in a clean shirt, and the morning was very quiet around them. And for a long moment neither of them said anything, because they didn't have to. He looked different in the clean shirt. It was a plain white button-down, open at the collar, and it was the first time she had seen him in something that had been chosen rather than thrown on, and it made him look younger and tireder at the same time. The bandage across his chest showed faintly through the cotton on the left side. His hair was damp from a shower somebody had apparently helped him through, because he was not going to be lifting his arms above his head for a while. He was sitting in an armchair, not the bed, and the bed was neatly made behind him, which was a small thing and also an argument he had evidently won with the doctor at 6 in the morning. "You ate," he said. "I ate." "Good." "Did you?" "I ate what a man with one working arm can eat without dropping it." "That's not an answer." "Toast. Some kind of yogurt situation. Half a cup of coffee that Vera cut with hot water before she would let me drink it. I am being patronized, Elena, by everyone in this building except you and, strangely, the man who cleans the floors." "Why the man who cleans the floors?" "He doesn't talk to me. He just cleans. It is the most dignified interaction I have had in 9 days." She laughed and sat down on the edge of the bed across from him. And for a little while they just looked at each other the way people look at each other after a night that should have ended differently than it did. He had a small cut on his lower lip she had not noticed in the garage. She had a bruise under her eye that was not from anything, just from not sleeping. She looked tired. He looked tired. They were two tired people in a bright room in the morning, and somewhere in that ordinariness, something quieter than love and more honest than it was taking its place between them. Vera came in before you, he said. Did she? She said the body was processed at 4 a.m. Whose body? Paolo's. Oh. She also said she wants you to have breakfast with her tomorrow. Your sister wants to have breakfast with me. Yes. That's terrifying. I told her. She agreed it was. She wants to do it anyway. Why? Because she likes you, Elena, which is a sentence I have not said in my life before today about another woman who is not family. Don't make me say it twice. Elena looked at her hands. There was still, faintly, under her thumbnail, a little rust-colored mark she had missed last night. She rubbed at it with her other thumb. Adrian. Yes. What happens now? He took a breath, carefully, because of the ribs. That is the question, isn't it? Is it a question with an answer? Some of it is, some of it isn't, yet. He shifted in the chair, winced, stopped shifting. The Morettis, he said, are a problem that, after last night, is about 40% of the size it was yesterday. Paolo had two brothers. One of them is going to want revenge. The other one is going to want to make a deal. I know which is which. We will spend the next 6 weeks letting the one who wants a deal believe he came up with the idea on his own. That one I can live with. The other one I cannot. We will not talk about that part. Vera will handle it, or the man in the worn suit will handle it, or I will handle it when I can lift my left arm again. That is the part of the answer you don't need. Okay, here's the part of the answer you do need. I have been, for a long time, a man whose life was too big in the wrong directions. I had, when I went to sleep 10 days ago under a bus, I did not see coming, about 400 people who worked for me in various shapes. I woke up a week later, and a number of those people, on their own initiative, had moved against my sister. Some of them had moved against me in the days when nobody knew if I was coming back. That is a number I know now. I know who they are. I am not going to kill them, Elena. I can see your face. I'm not. I am going to take what they are doing and make it no longer mine. I am going to divest. I am going to walk away from pieces of this that I should have walked away from 10 years ago. What stays will be clean, and what is not clean will no longer be mine to worry about. Can you do that? Most men can't. I can. Not because I'm remarkable, because I have money that was put in walls a long time ago by a man who is still angry with me, and because my sister is better at accounting than anyone in the city we are sitting in. I can do it. It will take a year. It will not be comfortable. At the end of it, I will be a man who owns a real estate holding company and a shipping interest and the building you are currently living in, and who does not have to take a meeting with another man with a paring knife for the rest of his life. That is the offer I am making to myself. You are, if you want to be, allowed to observe that offer being made. You are not obligated to be anywhere near it. She nodded, slowly, and if I wanted to be near it, he looked at her. Then you would be near it. That's not really... I know. His voice softened. I know. I'm being careful, Elena. Not with you, with me. You told me last night I don't get to make promises. I'm not making one. I'm telling you what is true right now. You can be in my rooms tonight and the night after that and the night after that. Not because you owe me anything, not because I own this building, not because Vera has decided you are family, but because when you walk in here, my chest does a thing it has not done in 20 years. I don't know what to call that. I'm 41 years old and I don't know what to call it. I don't trust men who rush to put a name on a thing. So I am not going to. I am going to sit here. I am going to get better. I am going to watch you decide whether you are going to walk into this room again tomorrow. And if you do, I will be in this chair and I will be glad, and we will figure out what to call it when we are both less tired. That's a long speech for a man with a stab wound. It's been a long night, Elena. Okay? Okay? Okay. I'll be in this room tomorrow. He let out a breath he had, she realized, been holding. Good. And the night after? Good. And we can figure out what to call it later. Thank you. She stood up, because she could feel that if she stayed another minute, she was going to do something neither of them was ready for. Cry, probably, or say something bigger than she wanted to say at 9 in the morning on 2 hours of sleep. And she walked over to the chair, and she bent down, carefully, because of the ribs, and she kissed the top of his head, which was a thing people did with patients, and with children, and with nobody in between, and he closed his eyes when she did it. "Rest," she said. "Come back for lunch." "I'll come back for lunch, yeah." She did not, in fact, come back for lunch. She meant to. She got as far as her rooms, and she sat at her little round table, and she looked at the small white flower Irina had left her. And somewhere in the quiet, she understood that she needed to do something before the world got softer around her, something her old life deserved, something the girl at the bus stop deserved. She called Detective Reyes. He picked up on the second ring. He sounded like he had been waiting for it. "Miss Cross?" "Detective? You're alive." "I'm alive." "Good. That's my preferred outcome for the week." "I need to come in." There was a pause. "In." "To the station, to your office, wherever. I need to give you a formal statement. I've been thinking about it. I told you I wouldn't lie for anyone, and I meant that. But I've also been not saying things, and I want to stop not saying things. I want to put on paper exactly what I saw in that hospital room. I want to put on paper the name of the man who called himself Dr. Hale. I want to be done with the pieces of this that are mine to be done with." "Miss Cross, are you alone right now?" "I am." "Is anyone listening on this line?" "I don't know." "Okay." "Detective?" "Yes. I'm not coming to sell anybody out. I'm not going to tell you anything I don't know for sure. I don't know anything about last night. I don't know anything about Paolo Moretti, except that I was told this morning he was dead, and I don't know how he died, and I don't want to know. What I want to be done with is what happened in room 4207. That was mine to see. I saw it. I want it to go on a record that is not a hospital chart." "Miss Cross?" "Yes." "That's the right call." "I know. It is not going to be a fun afternoon for you." "I know that too. Come at 3. I'll have a stenographer. I'll have my lieutenant. I will not have anyone from any other agency in the room because I do not trust anybody from any other agency this week. Is 3 okay?" 3 is fine." "Miss Cross?" "Yes." "Do you want somebody to pick you up, or are you making your own way there?" She thought about it. "I'm making my own way." Good. She hung up. She went back up 2 floors. Adrian was not in the bed when she came in. He was standing carefully by the window, and Mikhail was pretending not to be spotting him from 4 feet away. "I thought you were coming at lunch." "I am, after." "After what?" "After I go to the 6th precinct at 3 and give a formal statement about what happened in your hospital room." He turned. Mikhail, behind him, went very still. "Elena, I'm not going to say anything about you that I don't know. I don't know anything, Adrian. I don't know what was done. I don't know who. I don't know where. I have been very careful, on purpose, to not know. I am going to give them what I saw, which was a man in scrubs trying to inject my patient with potassium chloride, and the name that man gave, and the name that man mentioned. That is all I know. That is what I am going to say." He looked at her for a long time. "Why today?" "Because I told Reyes I would call every 48 hours, and I've been stretching it to 60. Because last night is going to be on a desk in somebody's office in this city, and I would rather the first thing on that desk with my name on it be a paper I walked in and put there than a warrant a man had to come to your building to serve me. Because," she took a breath, "because I am trying to build a life, Adrian, and not hide in one. I don't want to live in a building I can only leave through the garage. I don't want to look at my mother through glass. I want a life. And a life has police reports in it sometimes." He was quiet for a long time. "Mikhail," he said finally, without turning, "take 2 men. Drive her. Wait outside the precinct. If she is not out in 4 hours, call Ellis. Ellis is my attorney," he added to Elena. "He will be in the parking lot before you are out of your chair. He will not come in unless you call for him. He will drive a second car. If they try to hold you, he will make that very annoying for them, okay?" "Okay. Don't talk to anyone but Reyes and his lieutenant. Don't go anywhere else on the way. Don't eat anything they hand you on the way in. Drink water only from a sealed bottle. Do not take your phone out of your bag in the building. Are these rules annoying? Yes. They are also the rules. I will follow the rules. Good. She crossed the room. She did not quite know what she was going to do until she was doing it. She stood in front of him and she put her hand flat over the bandage on his chest, very gently, so it would not hurt. And she looked up at him. I'm coming back, she said. He smiled. Small. Tired. A real one. I know, he said. The room at the 6th precinct was smaller than she had imagined and more cluttered, and the stenographer's machine clicked the whole time, and Reyes across the table asked her questions she had already answered in her head 1,000 times, and she answered them out loud, and by the end of it, her throat was dry, and her hands were folded on the table, and her voice was steady. And when she got up to leave, Reyes walked her out himself. Miss Cross. Yes. For what it's worth. Yes. That was a clean statement. Cleaner than what I usually get from people in rooms adjacent to a Voss. Thank you. You're welcome. You know I'm still going to worry about you. I know. I'm not calling every 48 hours anymore, though. You're no longer a witness under active threat. You're a witness whose threat, unfortunately, died in a restaurant we're still pretending wasn't a restaurant. Whatever you are after this, you're after this on your own. I understand. Miss Cross. Yes. I hope I don't see you again. I hope you don't either. That is the nicest thing a cop ever says to anybody. She almost laughed. She shook his hand. She walked out of the 6th precinct into a cold afternoon, and Mikhail was in the car across the street, and she got in, and he looked at her in the mirror and said, Miss Cross, and she said, Mikhail, and he said, home? And she said, home. And for the first time, the word did not feel strange in her mouth when she used it about that building. The next 3 weeks were the first normal weeks of Elena Cross's adult life, which was a strange thing to say about weeks she spent living in a building with fingerprint elevators and a woman who shot a man in an Italian restaurant. But it was true. Normal turned out not to be about where you lived. Normal was about whether you got to wake up in the same bed 2 days in a row, and whether the person you were becoming was allowed to sit at breakfast with the person you had been. She had breakfast with Vera, which had terrified her, and which turned out to be egg whites and coffee, and an hour of Vera asking her a series of extremely specific questions about her own family, her own mother, her own brother Danny in Boston, and the kind of dishes she had grown up eating. At the end of the hour, Vera had nodded once and had said, I understand you now, Elena. Thank you for letting me ask. And Elena, who had been scared, had said, I didn't know I was letting you. And Vera had said, neither did I, until you kept answering, and Elena had understood that a thing had been decided in her favor that she had not known was up for decision. She visited her mother, on purpose, through the front door. Not in a car that Vera had sent, in a cab which she had paid for with her own money, out of her own account, which was not the account Vera had set up, but the old one, which she had decided for no logical reason to keep alive. She walked up the 3 flights to her aunt's apartment, and she hugged her mother for a long time in the hallway with the smell of frying onions from the apartment below them. And her mother said, You look thinner. And Elena said, I'm sleeping better. And her mother said, Both of those can be true. And Elena said, I know. And they went inside and ate food made by Aunt Rosa, and it was, as advertised, under-seasoned, and Elena ate 2 bowls. Her father, in the rehab facility in New Jersey, she saw on a Thursday. He did not quite know her that day. He called her young lady, which he did when his face could not quite catch up with his memory, and he asked her 3 times in an hour if she was a nurse, and she said 3 times yes, she was a nurse. On the 3rd time he said, Good work. Nursing is good work. My daughter is a nurse. And she said, I know. And he said, What's your name, sweetheart? And she said, Bertie. And his face did a small thing, and he said, Bertie, that's a name I know. That's my daughter's name. And she said, I know, Dad. And he said, Hi, Bertie. And she said, Hi, Dad. And that was as much of him as she got that day. And she took it, and she was grateful for it. And she drove herself back in the car Adrian had bought that was technically hers now. And she cried for about 8 miles on the Jersey Turnpike, which was the correct place to cry in this country. And by the time she got to the tunnel, she was fine again. Adrian got stronger, slowly, then faster. By the end of the first week, he was walking the hall of the medical floor. By the end of the second, he was back in his own apartment, which was on the floor above hers, and which she had never been inside. By the end of the third, he asked her, one night after dinner, if she wanted to see it. She said yes. It was not what she expected. She had expected. She did not know what she had expected. Something cold, glass and steel, and a kind of museum silence. It was not that. It was a real apartment that a man had been living in for 12 years. There were books stacked on the floor beside an armchair. There was a kitchen with a pot on the stove. There was a framed photograph on a side table of a boy of maybe 8 in a bad haircut standing next to a small dog in a yard somewhere. And Elena looked at it and said, "Is that you?" And he said, "Yes." And she said, "What was the dog's name?" And he said, "Grisha, and he was a terrible dog, and I loved him. And that was the thing that did her in, more than the books or the kitchen or the kind of man who kept a photograph of his own bad haircut and a dead dog where he could see it in the morning." "I don't know how to do this," he said, standing in the middle of his own living room, a man worth a great deal of money, a man who had killed people and been killed a little himself, a man wearing a soft gray sweater that was a size too big on him now because he had lost 15 pounds being a coma. I have never had anybody over who was not business. That's okay. I don't know what people do. People drink something. I have whiskey. I have water. I have a bottle of some kind of, I don't know what it is. Vera brought it. Water. He got her a glass of water. He got himself a glass of water. They sat on his couch, which was a real couch, a slightly ugly gray one that was comfortable in that ugly, comfortable way good couches were. And they did not touch each other, and they talked, and somewhere in the middle of talking, she took off her shoes and put her feet up on his coffee table, and he looked at her feet on his coffee table like it was the most interesting thing anyone had done in his apartment in 10 years. And he didn't say anything about it. And she understood then that this was what it looked like when a very particular kind of man learned how to let somebody in. It looked like a woman putting her feet on a coffee table and a man deciding not to mind. They did not sleep together that night. They did not sleep together for 3 more weeks after that, which was a piece of information Elena told nobody, but which she noticed about herself, because she was a person who had slept with people for less good reasons in a life that was now mostly behind her. When it happened on a Sunday afternoon in the middle of a conversation about whether the stove in his kitchen was good enough to roast a chicken, which was the least romantic setup Elena had ever been part of, and which was, for that reason, exactly right. He had said, "Elena?" And she had said, "Yes?" And he had put his water glass down, and he had kissed her, slowly, the way a man kisses somebody he has been working up to for 5 weeks. And she had kissed him back, and after a minute she had said, "Your ribs." And he had said, "My ribs are fine." And she had said, "No, they're not." And he had said, "Elena, my ribs have never been fine, and they will never be fine, and I am 41 years old, and I am done waiting for my ribs." And she had laughed into his mouth, and that was how that particular thing started. What she was not prepared for was how ordinary it got afterward. That was the part of the new life she had not been able to imagine. The part where she woke up, and he was already awake, reading something on a tablet in the kitchen, and the light was coming in sideways the way the light does in a corner apartment at 9 in the morning. And she came out in one of his sweatshirts with her hair a mess, and he looked up and did not say anything clever, just said, "Morning," and pushed a cup of coffee toward her that he had already made the way she liked it, and that was it. That was the new life. It was not thrones and violins and a man sweeping her across a marble floor. It was coffee. It was the two of them not having to perform being themselves for each other at 9 in the morning. It was the ordinary that she had been too poor and too tired and too alone to have before. And when she finally had it, she understood that she had been starving for it for years without knowing the name of the hunger. 6 months later, on a cold, clear afternoon in early spring, Adrian took her up to the roof of the building. She had never been on the roof of the building. She had not, she realized as they went up, actually known there was a roof you could go to. The elevator opened on a small landing with a door she had never seen, and he put his thumbprint on the panel, and the door opened, and they stepped out into wind and sun and a view that was, frankly, obscene, which was the only word for it. The park laid out below them like a green lake, the river beyond it, the bridge, the other bridges beyond that bridge, the city going on in every direction further than an eye could actually hold. Okay, Elena said, pulling her coat tighter. Now I know why you have this building. It's not why I have the building. It's a pretty good why. It's a bonus why.
He walked her to the edge. There was a low stone wall, chest high, safe. She rested her forearms on it. He rested his beside her. His left arm, which he could lift all the way now, which he had earned back in inches all winter in a gym on the medical floor. He was, 6 months later, almost the man he had been in the photograph in the hospital chart, except not quite. He had softened in some place she could not have pointed to. He laughed more easily now. He lost his temper less often. He was still a man who would not be sweet about the people who had moved against him, ever, as long as he lived. But he was also now a man who made coffee, a man who roasted a chicken, a man who had, 8 weeks ago, without telling her, paid off the last of her parents' mortgage, and who had not mentioned it when she noticed, and who had said only, when she had finally asked him about it across the kitchen island, "Your mother shouldn't have to die in debt to a bank, Elena. That is a thing I do not want in the world I live in." That was the whole explanation. It had been enough. They stood on the roof for a long time without talking. Elena. Yes. I am going to ask you a question. Okay? I am not going to ask it on a knee. I know that is a thing some women want, and I apologize in advance to those women, but my knees are not what they were before the bus, and I am not going to get back up again gracefully. Adrian, I am going to ask it standing up. Is that all right? Yes. He turned to face her. He took a small box out of his coat pocket. She had not seen him put it there. He opened it, and there was a ring inside it, and the ring was not what she expected. It was not a diamond the size of a grape. It was a plain band of white gold with a single small stone in it, a pale green one, old-looking, set simply. This was my mother's, he said. It was one of 3 things she managed to keep when she left my father. I have had it in a safe in this building for 15 years. I have never shown it to anybody. I have, I will confess, shown it tonight to Vera, who cried, which is a thing I have seen Vera do exactly twice in our entire lives, which was alarming in a way I was not prepared for. Adrian. Elena Cross. Yes. I have lived 2 lives. One of them tried to kill me in a hospital bed. The other one, the one I am still figuring out how to be, started in a room where I was supposed to be dead and a nurse decided I wasn't yet. I don't know if you are the reason I came back. I suspect you were. I know that you are the reason I want to stay. I am not going to promise you a perfect life, because I can't, and because you wouldn't believe me if I did. I'm going to promise you a real one, a door that is yours, a home that is yours as much as it is mine, a name, if you want it, and if you don't want my name, that is fine. I will take yours, or we will make one up. I don't care. You pick. I'm asking you to build something with me, not the thing I had before. A new thing. Whatever we decide it is. Elena was crying. She was aware of it, but it was happening anyway, the way good tears did, without much effort. Adrian, I know. I am asking a lot. You're not. I am. You're not. Yes. Elena. Yes, the answer is yes. He laughed. It was a small, startled sound, almost a cough, like he had not quite let himself believe it was going to land. He put the ring on her finger. It was a little loose. He said, "We'll have it fixed." She said, Don't change it." He said, "It will fall off." She said, "Then I'll catch it." He kissed her, and it was cold on the roof, and her nose was running a little from the wind, and neither of them cared. And somewhere 41 stories below them, the city went on doing what it had always done, which was not care about any of the people in it and keep spinning anyway. They were married on a Saturday in late September in a small stone chapel on the Hudson that held 50 people and had been built in 1818 by somebody who was very serious about windows. There were 32 chairs put out, and not all of them were filled because Adrian had said, "I want no one in that room who cannot look you in the eye without wanting a favor from me." And Elena had laughed and said, "Then we might actually only need 32 chairs," and that was how they arrived at the number. Her mother was there. Her father was there. The rehab facility had let him come for the afternoon with a nurse, and he sat in the front row in a good suit that was a little loose on him now, and he did not always know where he was,
But he knew Elena when she came down the aisle, which he would not have known yesterday and might not know tomorrow. And he stood up on his own and said, loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear, "That's my birdie." And Elena started to cry so hard she almost could not finish walking. Her mother was crying too. Her brother Danny was crying, which was the first time Elena had seen him cry since he was 14, and he was furious about it, which was very Danny. Vera was there. Vera wore a gray dress, which for Vera was essentially festive. Vera did not cry this time. Vera had already cried once this year about this exact event, and Vera was firm about not doing such things twice in one calendar year. Mikhail was there, in a suit that actually fit, which was somehow more surprising than anything else that day. He stood at the back, because Mikhail stood at the back of everything, and when Elena passed him on her way down, she stopped and kissed his cheek, because she felt like it, and Mikhail did not move his face at all except for a single very small flicker at the corner of his eye. Aunt Rosa made the food for the reception, which was held in a tent on a lawn behind the chapel. Aunt Rosa had been cooking for 3 days. Aunt Rosa had underseasoned everything as usual, and nobody said a word about it, because Aunt Rosa had also made the cake. And the cake was extraordinary, and people were told to eat the cake and shut up about the rice. Detective Reyes was not there. Elena had sent him a note, not an invitation, because she thought an invitation might have put him in a position he shouldn't be in. She had sent a note that said, "I hope you are well. I am well. I'm getting married. I'm telling you because you asked me once to build a real life, and I have, and it is a life with a real wedding, and I thought you should know." He did not write back. 2 weeks later, a card arrived at the building, no return address, that said only, "Good." It was saying, Ara and Elena had kept it in a drawer next to the small white flower Irina had given her on the worst morning of her life. They wrote their own vows. Elena's were short. She said, standing in front of him in a dress that was simpler than anyone had expected, "I didn't know you were alive. I spent a night in a room where everyone told me you weren't. I talked to you anyway because I was scared and lonely, and you didn't look gone. You weren't gone. You came back. Ever since then, I have been deciding every day whether I came back with you. The answer is yes. The answer is still yes. The answer will still be yes tomorrow and the day after that, and I will keep saying it until I run out of days." Adrian's were shorter. "I was a man," he said, in a voice that was steady until it wasn't, "who owned a city and did not own a morning. She gave me a morning. I am giving her the rest of them." That was all he said. His sister was crying. So was Elena's mother. Elena's father, in the front row, said loudly into the silence, "Good. That was good. That's a good boy." Because he did not know exactly where he was, but he knew a son-in-law when he heard one, and everybody laughed, and Elena laughed hardest of all, through tears, and that was how the wedding went. There was music afterward, and bad dancing, and a toast from Vera that was dry and brief and surprisingly sincere, and a toast from Danny that was too long and too drunk, and ended with him pointing at Adrian and saying, "You better not hurt her," in a voice that was trying to be scary and landing about 2 inches short. And Adrian, who could have done many things, just nodded and said, "Agreed," and Danny had to sit down because he had run out of material. They left at 10. Adrian had arranged a car, because of course he had. Elena kissed her mother for a long time. Her mother held her face in both hands and said, in Spanish, "Mira a mi, mija. You chose him. Remember, you chose him. That matters. A life you choose is different from a life that happens to you. Don't forget the difference. Don't let anybody make you forget." Elena nodded. She kissed her mother again. She kissed her father on the forehead. He was asleep now, in the chair, in the suit, with a piece of cake untouched in front of him. She kissed Vera on the cheek. She did not kiss Mikhail, because Mikhail had reached his cheek-kissing quota for the century, but she squeezed his arm, and he nodded, and that was enough. In the car, on the ride back, Adrian fell asleep with his head on her shoulder before they crossed the bridge. Elena watched the city come back up into view, all of it, the whole glittering, ridiculous thing that had once terrified her and fed her and tried to kill her and kept her alive. She did not feel triumphant. She did not feel like a woman in a movie. She felt, to be honest, a little tired and a little full of cake, and a little surprised by how ordinary the biggest day of her life had felt while she was living it. That, she thought, was probably the whole secret nobody told you. The biggest days felt ordinary while you were inside them. You only noticed how big they had been later, when you were trying to fall asleep, and the day replayed itself behind your eyes in a slower version than the one you had lived. She had, for years after, a habit she could not entirely explain. Every few months, on a night when she could not sleep, she would go to the window of the apartment she lived in now, the one high above the park, the one with the good light in the mornings and the ugly, comfortable gray couch, and the kitchen where a man who used to run a shadow empire made her coffee at 9. And she would look down at the streets, and she would think about the girl at the bus stop on 43rd and Halston, the girl with the damp collar, the girl with the cracked phone, the girl counting 2s and 4s in her head about her father's infusion, the girl who was $816 from disappearing. Elena was not that girl anymore, but she had not betrayed her either. She had carried her. She had kept her close. She had built a life, with a man who had been as broken as she had been in a different language. And she had not forgotten what it had felt like to be that girl at that bus stop, because forgetting would have been the real loss. If you forget who you were when you had nothing, then having something is meaningless. She had learned that early from watching Adrian remember his father, who had not forgiven him, and his mother, whose ring she wore, and the dog named Grisha in the yard in the photograph. The lesson she would have told anybody who asked her, and people did sometimes at dinner parties, in the careful, oblique way people asked about lives that looked different from their own, was this. You do not get to choose the night you find yourself sitting in. You do not get to choose whether you are rich or tired or scared or alone at 3 in the morning. What you get to choose, in the one small window that the night gives you, is whether you reach across the bed rail, whether you say the name of the person in front of you out loud, whether you let yourself be the weight that somebody else uses to come back toward shore. She had reached. He had come back. That was the whole of it in the end. That was the story, told plainly, without the dressing. A woman who had nothing had sat beside a man who had too much and had said, quietly, into a room where she was told there was nobody to hear her, "You're not gone yet," and he had decided, from wherever he was, that she was right. It was not a lesson about love. Not exactly. It was a lesson about attention, about who you see when everybody else has looked away, about what you are willing to say out loud when you are alone in a room with somebody nobody is bothering to listen to anymore. Those words cost nothing. They also cost everything. They had cost Elena Cross the life she had planned. They had also, on the other side of that cost, given her the one she had never been able to imagine for herself. On the first cold night of her second winter in the apartment, she stood at the window with her hand flat on the glass, watching the snow start, and Adrian came up behind her and put his arms around her waist, carefully, the way he had learned to do after the stab wound, and he rested his chin on the top of her head. "You're awake," he said. "I'm awake." "It's 2 in the morning, Elena." "I know. Are you okay?" She leaned back against him. She closed her eyes. "Yes," she said. "I'm okay. Come back to bed." "In a minute." "Elena, I'm coming. I'm looking." "At what?" "At the city." "Why?" She opened her eyes. The snow was catching in the streetlights below them, slow, like somebody had told it to take its time. "Because once," she said, "I was down there, and I didn't think I was going to make it, and tonight I'm up here, and I don't ever want to stop noticing the difference." He didn't say anything for a long time. He just held her. "Okay," he said finally, quiet, into her hair. "Okay. Come to bed when you're ready." "I will." He went. She stood at the window a little longer. The snow kept coming down. Somewhere below her a bus was pulling up to a stop she could not quite see, and a young woman with a damp collar was probably getting on it, and she did not know what was waiting for her at the end of her shift, and she did not know that somewhere, a long way from her, another woman who had once been her was standing at a window and remembering her and believing for her, quietly, that she was going to be okay. That was enough. Elena went back to bed.